Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Spectacular presented by NFL Sunday Ticket.tv. I am your gracious host, Adam Rank. And if you are looking to dominate your fantasy league this season, well, guess what? You're in the right place, because on today's show, we're going to break down position by position, giving you the best players to draft. We're going to go over some sleepers, some breakouts, some busts, all the stuff, guys that you're going to want to target, and so much more. I'm going to be joined by some of the best fantasy analysts on the planet. We're talking about guys like James Coe. We're talking about John Hanson, Lindsay, Rhodes, Marcus Grant, and so much more. Plus, we've got NFL legends and celebrities stopping by, including my friends Nick Viall, Steve Lemme. We're going to help you build a stacked roster so you can bring home a fantasy championship this season. Well, let's just get started.
Show me something. You know what I mean? Show me something.
Torry Holt got a step, makes the catch. Spectacular play by Torry Holt.
Torry Holt with a sensational grab.
You know, I could sit here and talk about how great Torry Holt is. We just wanted to go ahead and show you. And I think that anybody at a certain age has won a fantasy league at one point of their lives because of Torry Holt. And he joins us here right now. Torry, how you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there, man. It's good to see Adam. It's good to be on. And you know what? Those clips never get old. They never get old. It's funny. My son and I were talking today, and he said, "Dad, I saw on Twitter where Mark Bozier was throwing y'all the ball." I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Did you see the speed in which we were playing?" He was like, that was the first thing I noticed, was like how fast y'all was playing." So I saw that in those clips, man. So it's good to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's a certain thing, too, that sometimes, like, no disrespect to anybody who's ever played a game, and you're like, oh, it looks different. The way you guys played in the late 90s, the early 2000s, that is a style that I think that would transcend and excel
No
today.
doubt.
And listen, now that you can't be touched on the field, who knows how many teams, how many Super Bowls, how many fantasy championships you would have won us all.
That's exactly what that type of ball that you're seeing in the passing game is exactly what you saw we were doing. And we got a lot of guys that can throw it around the yard. We got a lot of guys that can catch it. Got some great runners. So I see the league continuing to trend with the numbers. I expect big numbers, Adam, this year out of quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs, as well as some of our tight ends.
Well, talking about the quarterback position, I think, and I know that you're well-versed in fantasy football, and you know, as well as anybody else, we wait on quarterbacks and everything like that. But as I watch Patrick Mahomes and I see the numbers that he's putting up, and I know that it goes against tradition, but do you think it's a mistake to draft Patrick Mahomes in the first 2 rounds?
Not at all. When I played in some leagues, and I've always jumped the gun on this, and I worked with John the Guru on fantasy. He would always talk about, you can be patient with quarterbacks, but if I like them, Adam, I'm getting them. And Patrick Mahomes is a guy that can fill up the charts, can fill up your point board consistently week in and week out. He has a coach and an offensive coordinator that are creative and finding him ways to get the ball to his playmakers, and Kelce and Harmon and then Tyreek Hill and those guys. So any chance I can get the QB like a Patty Mahomes, I'm jumping on it right away. And they have a run game, too, that they're going to continue to sprinkle into this offense with Hilaire, and Hilaire is excellent in the screen game.
Yeah, and it's so true. When you look at last year's drafts and you think of guys who went in the second round, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Patrick Mahomes exceeded all those guys. So I understand the theory, and the guru is right. But sometimes at quarterback, you have lock solid quarterback, don't have to worry about it. It feels pretty good. And speaking of quarterbacks, we got a fan question coming in. Somebody tweeted in, they wanted to ask you, what round should I get Josh Allen in?
Josh Allen again is a guy. Those 2 rounds too, and if you can wait, obviously if you can wait, you still can nab him. Obviously, if you wait later into the draft, but he has that kind of ability. I talked about the weapons that Patty Mahomes can throw the ball to. He has the weapons in Buffalo as well, and the difference between him and Patty Mahomes, though Patty will use his wheels, Josh Allen uses his wheels and he can score the football with his legs to go along with that arm. So that's what makes Josh Allen, in my opinion, again, someone in the top 2 rounds. If I'm drafting, I probably would take him. But if you want to wait, you can. But whenever you get him, you're getting a very dynamic player that can, again, fill up your scoreboard pretty often and quickly.
Yeah, there's something to be said about a quarterback who also serves as his own goal line back. And Josh Allen is like that. Cam
Big
Newton
boy,
is like
right?
that. So,
Big kid,
huge.
you know, plenty of signs. Yeah, huge. Yeah. So he uses that. He uses that and gives you more points in the red zone. And if you don't want to turn around and hand it off to that running back, though, they're still trying to find out what their running back position is. He makes up for a lot of that. He can do that with his legs in the red zone, potentially giving you 5. I think he can give you 10 touchdowns a year, in my opinion. He has that kind of ability in the run game. In the run game, he has that kind of ability, but they love his arm. Steph Diggs and them love his arm. They would rather be catching those touchdowns rather than seeing that QB take QB dives for the touchdown.
Yeah, especially if I'm starting Stefon Diggs. I want those. I'm selfishly want him to throw those touchdowns.
I mean, come on, as receivers, we want the ball all the time. Steph Diggs is that kind of play. He's a 100+ type of a catch guy you've seen, and he got a guy in Josh Allen that can get it to him.
Would you be upset, like as a receiver, like when you're obviously you want the team to win and you want to score touchdowns and the ultimate goal is, but at some point you're like, come on, dude, like throw me the ball, like get me involved just a little
bit. All the time. we're as receivers, we're always open, right? We always
never
want the football, right? And regardless of what's on the team. But yeah, that's Steph Diggs' mentality. But to his credit too, he does show up week in and week out. He's a very durable player, very consistent, and he seems to be a really good team guy. So have no problem of feeding Steph Diggs the rock.
Yeah, anytime you see a player like that who's beloved by his teammates, only good things are going to happen. Let's talk about a couple other quarterbacks. We have another fan tweet, and Chris wants to know, Chris, Dak or Lamar? This is a pretty interesting question. Lamar, no question?
No question. I've been a big Lamar Jackson fan since his days in Louisville. I see him tear up the ACC with his arm and his legs, and he has the ability to do that in the National Football League. So I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan, no question. And then I think he has some guys this year in Bateman that they drafted to bring over Sammy Watkins. I think Sammy can give him some good minutes and production. But the key guy, though, for Baltimore, if he can come on, is Hollywood. If Hollywood could stay healthy, take off the top end of the defense and some of those long balls, who knows what this passing game will be like? We know he can get it to Andrews, who's been very consistent, and we know that Lamar likes to throw to his tight ends. Did when he was in college. Played in the pro system in college. He can play in the pro system in the National Football League. We see that with his legs. I think it was a stat that I wrote down the other day. It was something about Lamar because in 2019, Jackson set the NFL single-season record for rushing yards by a quarterback. But in 2020, Jackson became the first quarterback in NFL history to have multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. So we know he can do that. But he can also pass the football. Those guys on the perimeter need to help him more. And if that happens, Adam, this year or whenever it happens, hopefully it's this year with that offense, better look out. Look out for the Ravens offense and their weapons on the perimeter and with the tight end. And they can rush the ball too.
Absolutely. He does it all. One of the most slept on top 5 quarterbacks I can think of. A couple other quarterbacks I want to ask you about. Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers had that MVP last season or MVP year last season. Which one of these quarterbacks do you want coming into 2021?
Aaron Rodgers. His ability to still play at a MVP like level. He has Adams, a guy who scores 10, 15, 18 touchdowns a year. I think he can do that again this year. He brings on his guy Cobb. I think Cobb is going to help him out. He's certainly going to look for Cobb. Cobb is going to be excited to play with his old guy and Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. So who knows what he'll do as well. So Aaron Rodgers for me, and then I like what they do out with the guys in the backfield as well as running the ball in the screen game. So Aaron Rodgers definitely for me. And then, by the way, I can't forget my man Valdez Scantling too. We give a shout out to Scantling as well as Lazard as well.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of buzz this offseason. I'm with you. I don't like Aaron. I'm a
Yeah.
Bears fan, so I don't like Aaron Rodgers, but like
Uh-huh.
I can
Yeah, I get
recognize
it.
the talent. I
Yeah.
can
And
recognize the
Kyler
talent.
Murray,
Like, listen,
no question. And Kyler Murray is still a guy to me who's still growing.
Yeah.
Who's still learning in this league. And he has Hopkins, I know that, and AJ Green who comes over. So he seems to be motivated to play. So we'll see what he does. But Aaron Rodgers, in terms of when you got to have a guy every year, Aaron Rodgers for me is certainly, if he's available, I'm snatching him as quick as I can.
I'm doing the same. What about Justin Herbert? Last year, got an emergency start, was incredible, like saved one game against New England.
Love
The
this
guy
kid.
was incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, better this season.
Yo, no question. Yeah, I think so. Even with this is a second coordinator, right? This is a different coordinator. I think
Yeah.
he's seen enough football. He'll see a lot more, and things will start to even more slow down for him. Has Keenan Allen out on the perimeter. We can go through his offensive weapons that he has. Looks like they'll be getting the ball back a lot more with Darren James and what he's doing, what he's showing in training camp so far, and how well they're playing defensively. So yeah, I see Justin Herbert continuing to grow. Big arm, can make all the throws. By the way, he's athletic. He can get out on the perimeter as well. You see 289.1 passing yards in 2020. I see more of that from Justin Herbert next year and going forward. He has that kind of ability, a perimeter Pro Bowl type player. He'll be an All-Pro as well.
All these great quarterbacks, I seem to miss. Like, I never get a chance to draft them for whatever reason. And I always end up at the end like one of those guys who waits on a quarterback. There's two that I'm always staring at. And I don't know if I'm making the right call, so I want to ask you. I'm not going to tell you which way I'm leaning. I always see Ryan Tannehill and Matthew Stafford. Which one of these quarterbacks should I go with?
You know what? I like Ryan Tannehill, and I was telling my brother, because he was kind of like with you on the fence about Tannehill, and I was like, look, man, I like Ryan Tannehill. I liked him last year. I liked him even prior to them getting Julio Jones, A.J. Brown there, and now you bring in Julio Jones to go along with that run game. He's another guy, too, that can get out on the perimeter with his legs.
Yeah.
You can move him outside of the pocket, and he has the ability to score with his legs, too. So Tannehill's very, very attractive to go along with those weapons that he has. And then Matthew Stafford, we'll see what he does with the Rams. It's not Detroit, it's the Rams, so we'll see what he does. The talent is there. His ability to do it is there. I want to see it. I think we will see it. But since I've seen it from Tannehill being with the Titans, I'll probably go with Tannehill.
Oh, I love it. Okay, cool. That's the way I've been kind of leaning that way. And you mentioned his running ability. He had 7 rushing touchdowns last season. And I've had a couple of stacks with him and Derrick Henry. And that way you get every rushing touchdown to the Titans, because Evans is not going to score any rushing touchdowns. So, okay, you made me feel good about myself. I appreciate it.
And I know some Rams fans probably not going to like that answer. But that's
it's okay.
But Tannehill's earned that though. He's a good football player. Very talented.
You have their respect. They're not going to hate you.
No doubt.
You can say what you got to say.
It's all good.
Or giving an honest answer. You know what though? But I can't. I got to ask you about the wide receiver position as well. Is there a guy, like a must-have, like a guy that you see that you're like, I have to have this player each and every time I come out of my draft?
In any position, in any player,
any player.
I mean, as far as wide receivers, yeah, it is. Let me. Yeah, it is. Devontae Adams is one.
Right.
I mentioned when we was talking about Aaron Rodgers.
How about Calvin? What about Calvin Ridley? How do you feel about Calvin Ridley this year?
Calvin Ridley is growing on me. Yeah, Calvin Ridley is growing on me. I think he has an incredible ability to get open, which makes him even more of an attractive player in fantasy football, because if you have the ability to get open, you'll get the ball. And Matt Ryan can get him the football, and Matt Ryan wants to get him the football. So, yeah, Calvin Ridley is definitely one that's growing on me and that I'm liking, and his production will continue to make him a very attractive fantasy football player for sure.
If I end up with Matthew Stafford, which one of the Rams receivers do I want? Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods?
You would ask me that.
I would. I got it.
How about both?
They're already mad at you.
Both?
They're already mad at you.
How about both?
All right.
I would. I like Bobby Trees, man. I like Robert Woods. I really do. And here's why: the speed of Robert Woods, and how he plays. He can get open just as effectively as Cooper Kupp, that we all know it does really well. Both have really good run after the catch, but Robert Woods can still run. He's a track guy. I think he's, if my memory serves me correctly, he's probably still training in the off season on the track. So the guy's ability to stretch the field, also can play underneath. He can make you miss and go the distance. Bobby Trees is who I would rock with. As you see right there, some of the run after the catch ability. Really, you see what I'm saying? Really, very, very consistent. And that's what I always have admired about Bobby Trees and Woods. So I'll go with Woods.
No, I love it. I'm going to buy the Bobby Trees t-shirt from NFLshop.com. So I'm going to make sure.
I'm surprised you don't have those out already. I'm surprised you don't have those out already, Adam.
I saw one. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
When did you see it?
I swear. It's on NFLshop.com.
Wow.
They literally have Bobby Trees shirts.
Oh, I would get one of those. I will look at that up.
All right. I think you should have connections with the Rams. Like you should, like they should just send you one. Like, why don't you just send him one? Why don't you send Torry a t-shirt? He's a legend.
Yeah, extra large.
There you go. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get on the horn with them. Make sure that you get a t-shirt. But before we let you go, I did want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what you're doing with the NFL Legends community. If you could speak on that for just a moment.
Yeah, I'm the Southeast region coordinator with NFL Legends community, and we're just really having a good time of informing and keeping our legends abreast of what's happening in the Legends community, the opportunities that's available for them from a health standpoint all the way to a business standpoint, even for guys that's looking to get into coaching and other various things beyond the playing field. The Legends community has those opportunities available for our legends. So I'm excited to be emailing and talking to our legends and letting them know what's happening. We are available for them, and I'm a part of a really good group of guys, other legends that are reaching out and continuing this great brotherhood that we have with the NFL Legends community.
Well, we certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing with the NFL Legends. We appreciate everything that you were able to do on the field. And I got to tell you right now, this was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We appreciate the insight. And I hope we can do this again real soon. I want to make this a regular thing. So hopefully we can get back together again and talk some more.
No doubt.
Football.
No question. Well, you know how to reach me, Adam. I appreciate you having me on. And look, this is going to be an incredible season in NFL. One of the better seasons that we've seen. We've seen a lot of good football. This year is going to be fantastic, and it's going to end in LA. So all our NFL fans, stick with us. Enjoy the ride. Fantasy leagues. Hope you get your player that you want. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Torry. There he goes, the legendary Torry Holt.
With the first pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence.
This is the guy. This is the direction we're moving.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Devontae Smith.
Turns on the Jets. Najee Harris going to get a lot of work for this team this year.
The Cincinnati Bengals select Jamar Chase.
I like this kid. I like Jamar Chase.
Right on cue. Justin Fields to the end zone with a touchdown, and the Bears take the lead.
What's up, everybody? Joining the show right now is a man who needs no introduction, but because I like to talk and get all this free airtime, I'm going to introduce him because this is the only time that I know they're not going to run B-roll over me. We're not going to see Austin Eckler highlights. I get to sit here and talk about my friend Marcus Grant, a man who is kind of the OG of the NFL Fantasy Live show. He is the host of the NFL Fantasy Football show. You see him all over the place. He's doing Total Access. He's doing NFL Now. You'll be listening. You'll be driving down the freeway, and all of a sudden you're listening to Sirius Radio, and like, Marcus is on the show. You got to pull over. You're freaking out. I don't know. I expect one of these days I'm going to see him on some TV, like a network TV show, and it's not going to surprise me at all. I already said your name, Marcus. What's going on? Thank you for being here.
Well, I guess this is the point where I announce to everybody that I will be the new host of Jeopardy.
Oh my
God!
What's
going to happen? Yeah, I figured you heard it here first. I will be hosting Jeopardy now.
I think you would be pretty good at that. Well, I think because of your TikToks is I think that's how you get in there. Because by the way, listen, the two of us, we stick out, no disrespect, and I'm sorry to put you in my age bracket, but we stick out like sore thumbs on TikTok. We're the old dudes walking around a Blink 182 concert being like, hey guys, hello fellow kids, doing TikTok and everything like that. And so Marcus, I want to ask you, where is Najee Harris going to be going in drafts this season?
Well, I took him recently in a draft. I was the last pick in the first round. I had the turn, and I took him with that first pick in the second round. I went Devontae Adams at 12 and turned around at 13, and I took Najee Harris. And that, to me, feels like the ceiling of where I'm going to draft him. I think you've got your first 4 or 5 running backs coming off the top. You've got Travis Kelce. You've got Adams that slots in there. There's another group of running backs like the Saquons, the Nick Chubbs, the Austin Ecklers that I think fill out the rest of your first round. And then I think you get into Najee Harris because there's no one else in Pittsburgh that's going to really take opportunities from him. He's going to be on the field a ton this year. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him approaching the neighborhood of 300 touches altogether. So I feel confident that even though I know people have questions about the offensive line, the volume is going to be such that Najee Harris is going to be worth taking as kind of a fringe, maybe even a mid-level RB1 this year.
I'm sure you get this a lot too. Anytime I advocate for Najee Harris, I get a lot of pushback from people who say, well, you said Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year, and he was a bust. First of all, he was the RB20. He wasn't quite a bust. Did we overdraft him? Yes. How is this situation going to be different than what happened with CEH last season?
Well, I think, first of all, I don't feel like we have let our imaginations run quite as wild with Najee Harris as we did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The other thing is, I don't think the Chiefs ever intended for Edwards-Helaire to be a true workhorse back. I mean, last year, you remember, coming into the season, they still had Damian Williams, who had that great game in the Super Bowl against the 49ers. He decided to opt out because of COVID protocols, and that with some injuries sort of opened the door for CEH to become basically the lone running back there in Kansas City. And so then we decided, hey, we got this running back in the Chiefs offense. Let's just, take it to the moon. And so he was a victim of our own expectations. I look at what Pittsburgh is doing with Najee Harris, and they do intend for him to be the workhorse. There's nobody else there that's really going to compete with him. So they're going to bring him in. They are using him as that workhorse back. So that, combined with the fact that I think hopefully, maybe, possibly, we learned our lesson from last year, that has sort of kept the draft price for him a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah, that's all well and good until Najee Harris goes 5th overall ahead of Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley. Another rookie running back that I really like as well, Trey Sermon. What do you think his sleeper potential is this season?
I think if you're looking at him over the course of the season, I think he probably caps out at maybe a high-end RB3, low-end RB2, but that's not because of his ability. That's just because, Kyle Shanahan's not going to commit to one running back there. Regardless of what Trey Sermon does, Raheem Mostert's not really going away without a major injury. Wayne Gallman, I don't think, is going to completely be ignored in this offense. But I do think Sermon is the guy that sort of fits best with what the Niners want to do running the football. And it's, I think, another situation sort of like with Williams and Gordon in Denver, where you're going to see Mostert kind of get a lot of work early. You're going to see Sermon start to slowly kind of integrate himself into that offense. And then by the end of the year, I think he's going to take off. So, again, it's a situation where if you're drafting Sermon, be patient because he's not necessarily going to pop right away. But we know how good Niners running backs can be based on the fact that, look, there were JaMychal Hasty weeks last year. So if you get an opportunity as a San Francisco running back, you've got a pretty good chance to be successful at some point.
JaMychal Hasty, Jeff Wilson Jr., Raheem Mostert, all those guys were fantasy factors in 2020. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. Which rookie should be the first off the board?
I'm going to go with Ja'Marr Chase. I think there are other guys that I like as much, maybe even a little bit more, but let's be honest. The opportunity for Ja'Marr Chase is as great or greater than some of the other rookies we've got in this class. You look at what the Bengals did last year. Joe Burrow was throwing the ball about 40 times a game before he unfortunately got hurt and had to miss the rest of the season. I don't really think that's going to change a whole lot this year. The Bengal defense is still going to struggle. They're going to give up a lot of points. This is going to be an offense that's playing from behind a lot. Throw in the fact that Burrow and Chase have familiarity playing together at LSU. So I could expect that, when the quarterback gets in trouble, he's going to look for a guy that he knows and feels confident in can make plays. So that's going to help Ja'Marr Chase get a whole lot of attention and be very productive this year.
Are you taking Ja'Marr Chase ahead of T. Higgins?
I would, yeah. Although to be honest with you, the guy that I like the most is probably Tyler Boyd because I think he gets as much opportunity as anybody else, but the draft price is a whole lot nicer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're getting it at the rack, not full sale Nordstrom's.
Right.
That's always a good way to go. Another great rookie, somebody who could break out, Devonta Smith has looked pretty good, run such great routes. Where are you drafting him?
I've been getting him in like the 7th round, and I'm very happy doing that. He's the guy that I think I like better overall than Ja'Marr Chase because I think the opportunity is going to be pretty good, but the draft price is a little bit nicer. From the moment the Eagles selected him, he became the best receiver on their roster. And this is a team that needs help at that position. They're still waiting for Jalen Reagor. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside I think we can say at this point, he has been a bust. They were relying on Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham in the past. So I think you're going to see Devonta Smith get out there and be a 100-target guy from the jump. And I think the Eagles are going to throw the ball more than people are anticipating. When you look at their running back committee, they've got some nice guys, but nobody they can lean on as a true workhorse there. So, like I said, I think Ja'Marr Chase is the first guy off the board, but I think Devonta Smith is the guy that you want among that rookie class.
And if we're talking purely pass catchers, one of the first off the board could be Kyle Pitts. Do you trust drafting Kyle Pitts as your starting tight end this season?
I do, but just not at the spot that people are drafting him right now. I still believe that Kyle Pitts probably should be the 6th tight end off the board. You've got your big 3 in Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle, and then you can debate what order you got Mark Andrews and T.J. Hawkinson in. I feel like Pitts should probably come right after that. I think he is extremely talented, and I think next year we'll be talking about him among the truly elite tight ends. But I think this is going to sort of be a Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation, right? Like, we have set his ceiling somewhere just south of Saturn, and I feel like, maybe he hits it, but history shows us that he probably doesn't. So I don't know that I want to draft him as the tight end 4 because you are drafting him at his absolute positive ceiling. So if I could get him as the 6th tight end, I'm happy to do it. The problem is that just hasn't happened a whole lot in drafts.
You alluded earlier to Trevor Lawrence. What do you think his ceiling is this season?
I think realistically, he's a QB2. I think if everything falls right, he can be maybe squeak into the top 12. But I think what we saw early on with Jacksonville, they still do have some issues along that offensive line, and I think that's going to be a big problem for him. I just think you're going to see some ups and downs, some spikes. I know people keep saying, can he be Justin Herbert? And Herbert, one, just surprised everybody with what he did, but he also set a lot of rookie quarterback records. I feel like even for a guy like Trevor Lawrence, that's asking a lot. So I think more realistically, you're looking at him as sort of a high-end QB2.
It's fun because Trevor Lawrence has been a player that we've loved since he was a freshman at Clemson. We've been waiting for him to get into the NFL, and yet now here we are. It feels like the 2 most talked about rookie quarterbacks right now, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, both, at least with Justin's case, it's because Chicago Bear fans are going crazy. Which one of those 2 quarterbacks is most likely to be a league winner for you?
I'm sorry to burst your bubble here, but I'm going to go with Trey Lance.
You're not bursting a bubble. It's fine. You can.
All right. Look, I think Fields is going to be very good, and I have actually drafted both of them in some spots if I can get them late in drafts. The reason, though, I'm going with Lance is, one, I feel like he's got better overall weapons around him. I think he's got more depth amongst his pass. I think he's got more depth among his pass catchers. Like I think you talk about Allen Robinson, he is the best out of all those pass catchers in that group. But I think with Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk, I think there's just more depth there. I also feel better when you look at head coaches and play callers. I feel slightly better with Kyle Shanahan than I do with Matt Nagy, and throw in the fact that I know that fantasy playoff schedules can sort of change and be nebulous, but the Niners, that last 3 weeks, they've got Atlanta, Tennessee, and Houston. If Trey Lance is the starter by then, that's just such a tasty schedule to get.
I don't see that changing enough. Like, I don't think that we're going to be sitting here in week, whatever it is, 17 or 16 and being like, can't start your guys against the Titans, whatever you do. Like, Bud Dupree is fine. He's not that good. So you had me. Like, I'm with the Trey Lance. I love what you're saying, but you're like, I don't know, because you're talking about second-year pass catchers. I would take Darnell Mooney over Brandon Ayuk, but that's just me.
Really?
It's fine. Listen, That's me. I've been listening to a lot of John Hanson, who has backed me up on this before. So, but I do love Trey Lance. I don't want to take anything away from him, and I don't think that Bears fans need to, shoot slings and arrows over it in any sense of the imagination.
And I love
but
Justin Fields too. So it's a common love fest here.
It's fine. It's fine. It's something that we can talk about more and more as the season progresses. And I'm going to let everybody know right now, if you can't get enough of Marcus, or you're just looking to dominate your fantasy league, make sure to download and subscribe to the NFL Fantasy Football Show. MG is dropping fresh knowledge to help you win each and every week. He's joined by Michael F. Florio during the season. So make sure you download and subscribe. And Marcus, thank you so much for being here today.
Always a pleasure.
All right, there he goes. Marcus Grant, everybody. Joining us right now is the medical analyst for the DirecTV Fantasy Zone. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He graduated from Harvard Medical School. I don't even have the SAT scores to do this segment, but he also played guard, not only for the USFL's Los Angeles Express. He was a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, got a 15-yard penalty because he had the audacity of spiking the ball after scoring a touchdown against the Bears. And he was also on Washington's Super Bowl 26 Super Bowl winning team. We love him. His name is Dr. Mark Addix. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Lovely to be on.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all on this side of the computer monitor, the Logitech camera, and all that stuff. We wanted to bring you on, though, because there's a lot of notable players this season returning from injuries. And one of the ones that comes top of mind is Dak Prescott. Talk to us a little bit about Dak's road to recovery and when we should expect him to be 100%.
I was really worried. Having an open fracture dislocation, we saw what happened with Alex Smith. You can have infections, you can have nerve injury. He avoids all that. He gets on the field. He's moving around great. I looked at a lot of tape on him. You honestly could not tell which ankle had been injured, and it was his right ankle. But then he comes back and he starts throwing the ball around, and his shoulder begins to bother him. And this is not uncommon. You see guys coming back from a lower extremity injury, and then their biomechanics are thrown off a little bit, and they're trying to make up some of that oomph with the shoulder, and you can see them tweak their shoulder. So he's had a second MRI, and things look good. So I certainly expect to see him back 100% for the regular season, but I don't know how much, if any, we'll see him in the preseason.
Well, preseason notwithstanding, I don't care about that. I need to know, is he going to be a fantasy league winner in 2021?
I really think that he's going to push 5,000 yards. I really do. I think he's going to have a big year. I think they have a great offense, and Ezekiel Elliott obviously takes a lot of pressure off him. I think he's going to have a big year.
What about, let's stay in the NFC East. What about Saquon Barkley? Obviously, the devastating knee injury last season. Where would you draft Barkley heading into the 2021 season?
I'd be a little nervous. I'm seeing him in the top 5 or right at 5 in a lot of lists. I probably would go 10. I don't know that I'd go 5. I'd be a little bit nervous. I'd be afraid of a slow start. I do think that he'll be back to himself once he gets 4 or 5 games in, but I think he's going to have a little bit of a slow start.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys who's going in on him a little bit early. Okay, how about 7? Can I do 7? Is 7 acceptable, Doc?
I'll accept 7. That's a good compromise.
All right, fair enough. Before we get to our next guy, we asked our fans on Twitter which quarterback has the most potential to break out this season. Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, or Trevor Lawrence. The winner in this poll by a close margin was Joe Burrow. And obviously Joe Burrow is coming back from an ACL and MCL injury. Are you buying Joe Burrow as a fantasy breakout player in 2021?
I don't know about that. When he got hurt, he is Gumby, because that looked like a borderline knee dislocation. How he just got his MCL and his ACL, I don't know. And again, this is a guy that I've watched on tape, moving around great, all right? He really is, but he's not himself. He's having a hard time stepping up in the pocket. He's having a hard time feeling rather than paying attention to the rush, keeping his concentration downfield. I mean, I don't see a breakout year. I mean, of those guys, I would maybe go Hurts or Tua. Tua with Waddle could be a dangerous combination. So it's interesting. The fans obviously disagree.
Yeah, you know what? Tua was coming off a hip injury, and last year his rookie season wasn't quite what we wanted. Hey, do you think that Tua can have a breakout? Do you think that that's feasible? Like he's going to be a much better this season?
I think having a Tyreek Hill type guy who can just kill it deep and also get a lot of yak, I think that he could have a much bigger year. Now that hip, I mean, he may not be the mobile guy that he once was, but I think he can be a great NFL quarterback. I just think it takes having the right pieces around him, and I think Waddle may be the one that really makes a difference for him.
You know, when I hear about these hip injuries, I want to ask you about Anthony Rendon, but that's not the right show for this. So I will stick to football. You want to tell me later? That's fine. But no, anyways, Odell Beckham Jr. What about his health? He had an ACL injury. Do you trust drafting Odell Beckham Jr. this year?
From a health perspective, I do. I mean, he's another guy that I've been able to see on tape and watch him move. I think that he's going to start the season strong. I mean, he has had a number of injuries as of late, but I think the ACL isn't going to be a big deal as he moves into the season. And the one thing I want to say is that I was really worried about that chemistry between Baker and Odell and about Baker's ability to get him the ball down the field. But Baker was making those throws to the X receiver, later in the season. And I think Odell's going to be that much more wide open. So I expect him to go over 1,000 yards. I expect him to go, somewhere around 10 touchdowns. I think Odell's going to really help some people. Maybe a little bit of a slow start, but I think at the end of the year he's going to be getting after it.
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you. I appreciate all this because Odell was It's funny because I was worried about Dak Prescott. I've been worried about Odell Beckham Jr. But now you put my fears at ease. It's like after you have a colonoscopy and you go out, and you're like, oh, everything's fine. I feel good now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that'll clear the mind.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Doc. We really appreciate you joining us here on the show. We'll look forward to seeing you on DirecTV this upcoming year. And as a matter of fact, get ready for all the football you can handle with a free preview of DirecTV NFL Sunday Ticket Max the first week of the season. Every live out-of-market game plus DirecTV Fantasy Zone, where you'll see Dr. Mark, and of course, the Red Zone channel. That is going to be absolutely free on Sunday, September 12th, only on DirecTV. Very excited right now to be joined by the 12th overall selection of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1997. He was a 5-time 1,000-yard rusher, 3-time Pro Bowler, a standout at Florida State, and anybody who was playing fantasy football in the 1990s knew that you had to have this man right here, Warrick Dunn. Warrick, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I hope my 90s record in fantasy was pretty good. So I hope people did draft me and utilize me.
Oh, I'm an old school guy, so I remember. Like it's like I remember going to Blink 182 shows and like all this stuff, old school kind of guy. Warrick Dunn, listen, you were one of the first guys. I remember, all the all-stars like you and then MJD. It was must-have players, absolutely.
Well, no, I appreciate that. I feel good now.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on. And since you are, a former running back, it only makes sense for us to talk about the running back position. So we went to Twitter and we asked people, if you had the first overall selection in drafts this year, who is the running back that you're going to take? And we gave them 4 options: Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. You can see right here, Christian McCaffrey, the overwhelming choice. More than 66% of those polled chose Christian McCaffrey. Let me ask you, did they make the right decision?
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, McCaffrey is talented. He can do it all. I mean, that's what you want, a guy who's very versatile. I just worry and then wonder how is he going to respond from the injuries. I mean, he was up and down last year and still productive, but it's scary of how talented he is. He's a guy that can take the pounding. He can get inside and outside. I like his game, but when you're looking at a Dalvin Cook, he's someone that I think can be consistent because he has pretty much the same players around him. They know what they're going to do offensively, and they're going to rely on him. So he's going to be a pounder. And Alvin Kamara is another one I think people need to really take a look at. They're scared about the Drew Brees thing, but I just feel like once they get into a rhythm, then he's going to really get into his stride and being involved in a run pass game. So, I mean, McCaffrey right now is the man, and Twitter, shows that, but I would look at a Dalvin Cook as well as Alvin Kamara.
So are you telling me, and I know you play fantasy football with the NFL legends, if you're sitting there at 1.01 and they come to you and they say, you have the first pick, who are you taking?
Oh, man, I may have to flip a coin. I may have to flip a coin. I think I may go with Cook just because, he's consistent week in and week out. And I love his style. Downhill runner, he's going to, make it happen. Again, this offense, they play together. So they really understand his run and what he expects out of them week in and week out. And he's not really battling injuries, right? Coming back, having to prove that he's healthy. That's the difference between him and McCaffrey. McCaffrey has to prove to individuals that he can still go out and be consistent and pound. Cook, I think, still, opportunity for him to continue to grow and become a better runner.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, too, because I know that part of the rap on Dalvin Cook coming into the league was his injury concerns, but he's played well over 2 years. Christian McCaffrey played just 3 games last year, and everybody just seems to forget that. So I agree with you. I think Dalvin Cook should absolutely be considered the first overall selection. So we got those two settled down. You talked a little bit about Alvin Kamara. What about Derrick Henry, though? Is there any concern? Because he had a lot of carries last year. Is there any concern that he's going to have a little wear and tear this season?
Well, I would be concerned if you really look at the history of the 2,000-yard rusher. I mean, the year afterwards, they're not going to rush for 2,000 yards. I mean, he may get 1,200, and I just think now because they don't have the same offensive coordinator. He's the head coach now in Atlanta. I just think the offense is going to just take some time to get adjusted, and plus defenses are preparing for Derrick Henry. What are they going to do? They're going to stack the line and really force the quarterback to beat them. And I think years past, you've seen Henry really build up to become that consistent runner, and it's taken a few years to really, or a few games, I would say, to really get going and get into his stride. I mean, I like his running style. He's downhill. He's a big guy. Shows some speed and some quickness, but at the same time, you're talking about a guy who rushed for 2,000 yards, and you want him to come back and do that again? I just don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be more around 1,200, 1,300 yards.
Somebody who was always at the top of the draft was Ezekiel Elliott, and now he just seems to keep tumbling down the draft board. Do you think that Ezekiel Elliott can bounce back this season with a healthy Dak Prescott?
Well, I think having Dak Prescott is key for Ezekiel. I just think once Dak is back to normal and really putting the offense on his shoulders, now what you do is you really rely on the run game. Let them control the line of scrimmage, and the Cowboys are known for that. They want to control the line of scrimmage and put the ball in the running back's hand. Let them take over, but you do need a quarterback who can help get the guys off the line of scrimmage, and he needs to get confident himself, Dak Prescott, so that now what he does is he's taking the pressure off everyone else and really putting the pressure on themselves to be the best quarterback that he can be for this offense. And I just think if he does that, Ezekiel is going to have some big games. Is he going to be the Ezekiel years ago, that's hard to say. You have to be, a guy continue to be hungry and consistent and so forth. But I just think, Dallas has had its ups and downs when it comes to running the football. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I like the fact that he has Dak, but we just never know how he responds and how the offense responds too.
Last season, there were two running backs that everybody seemed to be really excited about: Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Results were a little bit mixed. Do you see, like, if you had to choose between one of these two players, who do you think could have the biggest impact this season?
Well, I'll probably go with Clyde Edwards, because the talent around him in Kansas City, I mean, the pressure's not on him to make plays. All he has to do is just play his part. They're talented. They're creative on offense. They spread the ball around. So it's not predictable that he's going to get the ball consistently. But when you think about Miles Sanders, you think about someone who's has the ability to really impact the Eagles in such a way that, if they can give him touches, if they can create seams for him, he's a dynamic runner. But at the same time, now what you're doing is you're bringing in a running quarterback. So that's going to be an adjustment for him to really get into his groove and understand where he's at and his position, in the run game. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on him to make plays, but I love his versatility. I like the fact that he can do it all. I think that gives him an edge over Clyde Edwards, but at the same time, I just like the overall, it's no pressure for Clyde to go out and play because of the talent around him in Kansas City.
Yeah, and an interesting note, too, that I found out this offseason, through the past two seasons, Travis Kelce has seen 27 red zone looks in 19 games. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 28 red zone looks in his rookie season alone. So that's something to consider, too. So I kind of agree with you. I love both those running backs, but I do like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, let's take a look. We have a fan who asked a question, if we can bring that up right now. And this is I love this question, and I'm really interested to get your take on this. Najee Harris or Antonio Gibson? Which way are you leaning?
That's I don't know. I do. Antonio has played, right? You really know what he can do. I mean, he's a creative running back. He's a guy who could do a little bit of everything, right? I like that. Najee is a rookie. He's coming in. And when you really look at the running backs that have come out of Alabama over the last few years, they didn't come off, their first year just blazing out of the gates. It's taken them a little bit to really, get going and understand. And just like Henry came out, he didn't really produce it was the type of runner he is today. So I think a little bit of Najee is going to really have to, get that consistency going, understanding the plays, blocking, trusting his line and those things. So I would probably go with Gibson early on because, he's already been there, he's done it, and they know how to utilize him. Like I said, he can do it also. He's versatile. He can do it inside, outside. He can catch the football. I think he's faster than Harris as well, so his quickness is there. So I would definitely go with Gibson today over Harris.
Okay, well, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to take Gibson, and if it doesn't work out well, then I can just blame you. No, it's perfect. I want to absolve myself of all self-loathing if he doesn't come through. Let's talk about a couple of your former teams. Mike Davis is the new running back in Atlanta, and it's kind of surprising to me that we're not seeing a little bit more buzz for him. It doesn't feel like he's going to have much of a competition for targets or touches or anything like that. Do you feel that people are sleeping on Mike Davis?
Well, I think early on they are sleeping on him because you don't know what the offense or what they're going to produce up front for him. So he really needs his line to come together. And I think this year you'll see the offense change where they're going to try to run the football much more consistently and effective. In years past, for him to get going, he had to get all of the touches, but he also had a good line that was used to run blocking. You have to, give your guys opportunities. So I think this year, as the Falcons, we're going to really try to run the football often, early, and get him going. And if he could, bust one or two here and there, some tough runs and 6 or 7 yards, guys get confident. I think that would open it up for him. So people this or that, he's not getting a lot of buzz, but I just think over the course of the year, you're going to see a change, a shift that if they can run the football much more consistently, he's going to be making plays.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to regret not drafting Mike Davis. Let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Which one of these running backs do I want? Do I want Leonard Fournette or do I want Ronald Jones?
Well, I would go with Jones. I like Jones. I think he's much more versatile Fournette. I mean, he had a great playoff, great Super Bowl. I mean, that's hard to argue. But Jones has been much more consistent, and you want someone who's consistent, who can pretty much do it all. And like I said, he's versatile as well. So this year's so many versatile guys who can catch the football. I think that's what teams want out of the backfield and run the football. And Jones is doing it. He's a hard-nosed runner. He can make plays when nothing's there. And it's just a little bit different from Fournette because, Fournette came along during the run and they were just rolling. So, but I'll take my chances with Jones. To really make it happen.
Again, I'm going to put that one on you. I'm going to take Ronald Jones, and if it doesn't work out, I'm going to come back and be like, Warrick set me up, but that's okay. And
well,
by the way,
no, I was going to say,
I'll give you credit.
Well, I won my fantasy league. The first year I played, I won it. The last couple of years, I hadn't fared too well. So I don't know if you want to listen to me.
No, I definitely want to listen to you. And I do want to say, too, I've obviously admired you as an NFL player. But what I really admired about you even more is a lot of the work that you've done off the field. So if you can take a moment right now and talk about your role with the NFL Legends community and, of course, about your charity, Homes for the Holidays. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Well, I'll start off with the charities. Warrick Dunn Charities in our program, Homes for the Holidays, where we assist single-parent families who are becoming first-time homeowners. That's giving them $5,000 down payment and fully furnishing their homes with furniture, food, linens, garden tools, TVs, all the way down to the toothbrush. And to date, we've up to 193 single-parent families that we've helped in 25 markets. And so we've been able to really push this program, and I'm thankful for all the support that I've gotten. And I am a part of the Legends program as well. I'm a Southeast Regional Coordinator. And really what we're here to do is really assist, retired players. We call them legends of the game, really to assist them and make sure they have access to all of their benefits. They know all of the information that is there for them. They played hard. You should reward them. But at the same time, we want guys to stay connected to the game, be engaged, be involved with the local team. But we want to make sure they have access to all the things they've worked hard for. So we love building relationships and really getting that time together to fellowship, come together and be thankful for each other. So team, we're all about team and sacrifice for each other.
Well, Warrick, I want to thank you, first of all, for coming on the show today and all the work that you've been doing on and off the field over the last decades. So we really appreciate you, and thank you so much for being here today.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Warrick Dunn, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, everybody? This is, I got to be honest with you, no disrespect to everybody who's been on the show or anything like that, but this is the panel that I have been looking forward to the most. A guy whose movies have spoken to me in the past, Super Troopers, Beer Fest, Tacoma FD, but it's Steve Lemme. Steve, thank you for being on.
Hi, my pleasure.
I do want to start with the Giants, and one of the biggest questions I think coming into fantasy this season is what do we do about Saquon Barkley? Are you having any hesitation in drafting him?
I am. The Giants in general, like for me, the running back isn't the skill of the running back isn't as important as the skill of the team, particularly in the wide receiver area. When you think about some of the great combinations, some of the great running backs, one of the things that they had was a fantastic wide receiver out there stretching the field, probably two, and then a great quarterback, somebody who made people respect the pass, and that opened things up for the runners. And I actually think that holds true in most cases. You're not going to find a fantastic running back for fantasy unless you've got all those components. And I'm just not sold on the Giants this year with any of those pieces.
You talked about having Danny Dimes early on in his career. Are you still holding a grudge against him?
Yeah, I sure am. I sure am. It's, for me, it really was summed up with that long run and then stumbling and falling, when he had a short touchdown. I mean, what a great run that was. And that to me is, honestly, I expect that from the Jets. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, he's got a little bit of the Jets stink on him. So until he shows me otherwise, he's in my personal jail.
What about Zach Wilson, though, going to the other side of the stadium? What do you think, Steve? Do you have high hopes for Zach Wilson this season?
No, I don't. It's the Jets. It's the Jets. It's nothing against the guy. These are professional athletes. And, as somebody who has seen his own name smeared publicly, I don't like to go after people. So I'm just saying he's a rookie quarterback. It's the Jets. We need to see it. All I've ever seen is bad Jets football. And until I see otherwise, I'm going to continue to keep this position, which is no, I don't really draft Jets for my fantasy football team. That's the way it goes with the Jets. When Sanchez showed up, I remember his first game, I think he converted on 11 of 14 third downs. And my Jets friends out here in LA, we were like, oh my God, this guy's the best. And every time they would show the stat, 10 of 13 third down, 11 of 14 third downs, we were like, this guy's the best. And then they won, I think, the first 3 games. And we were like, we're going to the Super Bowl. After that, we know what happened after that. We'll see. Yes. We need to break the cycle here.
And switching gears here, I don't get to talk about my favorite team, although I've been talking about them all day. But listen, here's the thing. One thing that I have learned about Steve is that for whatever reason, he has an irrational hatred for the Chicago Bears. What did we ever do to anybody? Is it 85? I don't know. Why? First of all, why do you hate the Bears? And what do you think about Justin Fields, though? We're talking about quarterbacks earlier. The Bears, we're going to be super excited about Justin Fields. What do you think of him?
I actually am very high on Justin Fields. I like what I saw in preseason. And believe I'm loath to compliment any other team, particularly a team from Massachusetts or Chicago, though I do love Chicago as a city. But Justin Fields, I think he's the real deal. I think he's the real deal. And one of the things I liked just about the limited action I saw him in the preseason was his poise. I'm big on poise with the quarterbacks, and he took his time. And I really liked the way he would fake the run and go to people and find his receivers. And it was just, there was something about him. There was a confidence that I don't think you see in a lot of rookie quarterbacks, or even, some veteran quarterbacks as well. So, I'm pretty high on this guy. And I think David Montgomery is maybe the most underrated running back in the league. So there you have it. I have endorsed Chicago and the Chicago Bears.
Well, I love to hear that, and I love to hear that there is a season 3 of Tacoma FD, which is going to be coming your way September 16th on True TV. And if you've not watched this show yet, well, guess what? You're in luck. You can go to HBO Max and watch seasons 1 and 2 of Tacoma FD, and I encourage you to do it. Don't tell the other guests. This was my favorite part of the day. I'm not going to lie.
Glad to hear it. I appreciate you too, Adam.
Touchdown Raiders. Onion. Oh, he's got it for the touchdown. Kittle off to the races. Pass is caught and on the run. Launches to Andrews. Open for the touchdown. P.J. Hawkinson. Touchdown Lions.
All right. Very pleased right now to bring in the host of the DirecTV Red Zone. He is the host of the NFL Network's NFL Now. A young man that I've known for quite some time. We were at Super Bowl parties in San Diego for Super Bowl 37. He was very nice and accommodating to me. He's always been a mensch. Please welcome Andrew Siciliano.
Adam, good to see you. I don't remember that party, but I do remember that Super Bowl. And this is weird that these are my two jobs kind of coming together, and I'm wearing the NFL Network golf shirt. Like, it's just kind of a weird rule. Well, what party was that, by the way? Was it like the Lee Steinberg San Diego Zoo party?
It was actually the 989 party where Keenan McCardell defeated some Raiders player. And it was back in the day when 989 had their video game, and you were part of the Tony Bruno show, and Keenan McCardell won the game. And so we were all just like, okay, so the Buccaneers are winning the Super Bowl. What else is new? But anyways, nobody cares about anything like that. They care about tight ends. Somebody reached out to us on Twitter asking about Travis Kelce. When is it acceptable to draft Kelce? 1.06 after Devontae Adams? Andrew, let me ask you, when is the earliest you would draft Travis Kelce?
It's a good question. I think it also depends, Adam, on how many teams are in your league, and assuming you're in a PPR league, I feel like everyone is these days. I personally can't take a tight end in the first round. It's kind of against my religion. I am still very old school. I guess I'm the Costas of fantasy. I still need running backs and running backs and running backs all the time. Like, you can't take me out of my curmudgeon ways. But considering, and I realize this year is a little bit different, and it's seemingly, with Kyle Pitts and more tight ends coming into the league, the tight end field expands every year. If you are of the mindset that I'm going to take my tight end, I'm not going to worry about him, I know I have the elite player here, a handful of elite players. I have one of those guys, and it's going to help you sleep easy at night to take him in the first round. Go for it. To me, he's more of a second round pick.
Okay, I kind of get what you're putting down right there. I think I have a better chance of getting you to come over to my WrestleMania party than I do of having you take Travis Kelce in the first round. And that's okay, because as you said, there's some good guys who are starting to emerge. So let's talk about that second tier. And if you're looking at Darren Waller, you're looking at George Kittle, which one of those tight ends would you rather have?
I know this sounds insane, I would probably go Darren Waller, only because the 49ers will eventually have some turnover at quarterback this year. I don't know when it's going to happen. Now, a tight end could be a rookie quarterback's best friend. I'm not suggesting he's going to have a bad year in San Francisco. We know what Kyle Shanahan likes to do with his tight ends. But I also think that Darren Waller is an ascending player. I got the chance to see the Raiders up close a couple of times in the preseason. The first time we went there for inside training camp, Waller was still not practicing, but the Raiders, to a man, want to remind you, we had a top 10 offense last year. And if there's any issue with the Raiders this year, it's that Derek Carr may have, I don't want to say so many weapons that he forgets Darren Waller, but Henry Ruggs will take it to a next level this year. They think they're going to get a lot out of Bryan Edwards. Hunter Renfrow is coming into his own. Darren Waller is still the number one target, but I believe he's an ascending player, so he would be my guy over Kittle.
No, I like Darren Waller too. You're not going to get any argument from me, even though George Kittle is my wrestling guy. I might have to go with him. But anyways, what about a little further down the board, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson? Which way are you leaning here?
Now, TJ Hawkinson, like on the top 100 on NFL Network, was higher than like Tre'Davious, like some huge big name all pro players. And yeah, I was listening to the radio this morning, and someone in LA asked, who is the Lions' best player? Like, just talent. Who is the Lions' best football player? And I think there's some votes for Frank Ragnow. I think you're going to get a lot of votes for TJ Hawkinson as well. Yeah. I just don't know yet how Anthony Lynn and Jared Goff and that offense are going to look. I would say that he's probably not the safest pick, but I do think he's going to have a good season. Mark Andrews, though, you can't go wrong. Right? I mean, no matter how many times Lamar Jackson is going to turn it around this year. He's going to throw outside the numbers, and Rashad Bateman this year really is the answer. Well, now he's hurt, but don't believe what you've said in the past. It's not the receivers, or rather, it's not Lamar, it's the receivers. Mark Andrews is always going to be that guy. He is Lamar's safety blanket, and he's going to put up huge numbers.
No, I agree. I mean, you look at the history between the two, they tell you who the better player, who he's going to go to every time. So I agree. I love Mark Andrews. I feel like he's one of the more undervalued guy. Another player that has generated a lot of buzz, this goes back to the draft season. The Atlanta Falcons drafted Kyle Pitts. Are you buying the hype for him this year? Are you looking forward to him breaking out in fantasy as well?
Okay, so there's a yes and a not yet. Yes, I'm buying the hype. I do think he is legit. I think he looks awful in the 8. That's a quarterback number. Get rid of it. Or it's a wide receiver. It's not even a good wide receiver number. It's just a bad number for a man that size. I think he's the real deal, but I don't know, unless you're in a keeper league, Adam, that he's the real deal yet for fantasy. I had this. I looked this up before you and I sat down here. And you're going to appreciate this, I hope. Do you know what the most receiving yards ever for a rookie tight end in the history of the league? Any idea who it is?
Tony Gonzalez, somewhere around 700 yards.
It's a really good guess. It's not. It's just over 1,000. It was Ditka. No joke.
Whoa!
Mike Ditka. He's the only guy as a rookie tight end, and you can double check this, but as far as the Google tells me, to get 1,000 yards as a rookie tight end, also shorter season then, so good for Mike Ditka. In the Super Bowl era, it's like Jeremy Shockey or something in the 800s with the Giants, which was a very good year. History tells us Kyle Pitts is not going to have like a Justin Jefferson season last year as a wide receiver. I think those guys are more likely to have those kinds of seasons. I think he's going to have a good season. But unless you're keeping him, or unless you're in a keeper league, I don't know that he's worth a very high pick.
No, you're absolutely right. I think dynasty is the way to go, and where he probably has the most value. And it is tough for those tight ends to make an impact during their rookie season. And speaking of impacts, I should have mentioned right off the top, big Cleveland Browns fan. Last season, not only made the playoffs, what a playoff game. I think it's huge. And Baker Mayfield, you talk about the NFL top 100 list. Baker Mayfield made it this year. Are fans sleeping on him for fantasy?
I think they are. I was looking up here, not to look away from you, but I was looking up here because, hold on. Do we have time for props? Stay there.
Please. No, this is, you're asking me if we have time for props. There is always time for props.
So here's a Bernie Kosar starting lineup figure from the 80s. And I get this because I do think that Baker is poised to have like a Bernie 86 or 87 kind of season. Granted, far different era, far different game, but kind of like, hey, the light's on. And if you go back to last year, with the way COVID happened and the way training camp happened and the way that you had a first-year head coach trying to install a new system, the light didn't go on, I think, collectively for this offense until the second half of the season. And then you saw what they could do. I was in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago. They are just a different team. And I know momentum doesn't carry over, but the look on Baker's face, the look on everyone's face on the offensive side of things, when it comes to the comfort that they all have in the system, it's night and day compared to last year. So I do think he has a good year. Now, they are still a run-first team, and I think there are going to be times this year where Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are both on the field at the same time, which takes away from both of their stats and potentially takes away from Baker's overall fantasy numbers. They want to run the ball. Go back to Stefanski in September last year, the Bengals game, week 2. He's mic'd up talking to Alex Van Pelt. They had to bleep it out, and he turns to Van Pelt and says, "Do you know how much I love running it down there, bleepity, bleepity, bleep?" That's what he wants to do. So he's not going to throw for 5,000, but in terms of sleeping on him for fantasy, absolutely.
Well, what about Nick Chubb then? Obviously, he missed 4 games last season. Is he somebody who's going to crack the top 5, given that Stefanski wants to run the football?
Yeah, I think so. I absolutely think so. I mean, he's come close to rushing titles a couple of times, and I think he's going to be in that conversation again. But they have Kareem Hunt. And I do think, especially with the extended season, and we see him here against the Titans. I mean, let's think about this for Derrick Henry as well. They don't have Kareem Hunt behind Derrick Henry. Do you want to be careful with the workload thinking about the playoffs? If a game in September and October is over early, you're going to see Kareem Hunt, you're going to see Dearness Johnson, you're going to see Demetric Felton, you're going to see the other guys. They are not going to give him 28 carries a game.
One of the benefits of living in Los Angeles, we got the weather out here. We also get preseason football games of the Los Angeles Rams featuring you on play-by-play with Mina Kimes, with Aqib Talib. To me, the best booth in any preseason game. I would like to see that during the regular season as well. Selfishly, though, I want to ask you a little bit about Matthew Stafford. This is a player that I've been drafting a lot. Is there a possibility that Matthew Stafford could be a league winner this year?
I do. I do think he is going to be that guy. It's funny, I'm going out there all the time, and I want to stress here, this isn't a comment about the media that covers the Rams daily or the talking heads on any network hours or others that always want to go back to the same low-hanging fruit is Matthew Stafford going to carry the Rams to the Super Bowl? I think Matthew Stafford is one of the least significant questions with the Rams this year. I think he's going to be fine. Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, the weapons they have, the line they have. I know Darrell Henderson scares some people, but he'll be fine. I think he's going to light it up. The bigger concern for me is you lose some key pieces on what was the number one defense in football, and then you have Raheem Morris coming in, kind of calling what was Brandon Staley, Vic Fangio 3-4, even though he's been a 4-3 guy. To me, that's the more intriguing angle here with the Rams. I know that's not fantasy, that's more big picture here. I think Matthew Stafford is going to light it up, and I have zero hesitation saying that. I think he is looking potentially at 4,500 yards and a huge number of touchdowns.
Yeah, he's an amazing talent. And Andrew, you as well, an amazing talent. We look forward to seeing you this season on the Red Zone channel on NFL Now. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
I will see you, Adam, on the 703 on the 12th of September. The feeling is mutual. I'll see you on Now, I'm assuming the week of the 30th.
All right, I can't wait. And get ready for all the football you can handle with a free preview of DirecTV NFL Sunday Ticket Max the first week of the season. Every live out-of-market game, plus DirecTV Fantasy Zone, and of course, the Red Zone channel featuring Andrew Siciliano. It is absolutely free on Sunday, September 12th, only on DirecTV. All right, joining the show right now, I'm very excited about this one. This is a young man that you met and fell in love with on ABC's The Bachelorette. He was The Bachelor. Now he is a multimedia mogul. His podcast, YouTube show, The Viall Files, amazing. And by the way, not for nothing, his TikTok, if you're not following him on TikTok, you are doing yourself a disservice. But please welcome to the show, Nick Viall. Nick, how you doing?
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, and I wanted to make sure that this was just going to be you and me. We bring in, not a lot of people get the solo set, but you know what? I wanted to make sure that we spent some time as a Bears fan, as a Packers fan, that we could show everybody that we could be civil and still disagree. But I did want to dive in. I think the Packers are one of the most interesting teams, both in reality and fantasy. How was your summer, though, as the Aaron Rodgers drama was kind of playing out?
It was just like annoying, I think you and I are on the same page for different sides of it. But I think my heart told me like he's going to be back. I love Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. I appreciate so much what he's done for the franchise. But it was like, it's like having the friend that you feel like is just kind of throwing a temper tantrum and you just kind of had to let him get over it. And, all signs and reports are that he, is bringing a positive attitude to training camp. But yeah, while it was going on, it was just, he wasn't very communicative with his audience or his fans, and that he has the right to do that. But as a fan, yeah, you're just kind of like, it felt like the wrong people were being punished. That's what it felt like,
Yeah, that's like if you're watching two of your friends squabble with each other, but then you get the brunt of it and he's not returning your text. You're like, what did I do? Like, I'm just an innocent bystander here.
Totally.
But what about this season, though? Last year, he responded to the drafting of Jordan Love by going out and having an MVP campaign. Do you think that he can recapture that magic once again and have not an even better season, but a season equal to what he did in 2020?
I really do. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers we're talking about. I know he had, for his standards, maybe a down few years, but just as a fan watching him play, it just you saw that the talent was still there, and the guy, he's a highly motivated person, and I think there's a lot for him to be motivated by. He still has his critics, all the people who maybe want to see him fail, who does, as he gets older. Tom Brady has another Super Bowl ring. There's a lot of reasons for him to be motivated, and I think he's going to have a great season. And I think he's, for all the reports that like, oh, they don't draft first round receivers, I think their team is stacked. I think MVS is going to have a breakout season. I think he's going to be a legit number 2 in that offense, and AJ Dillon, I think they're deeper than people realize at tight end. So, once Bakhtiari gets back, I think they're going to be rolling. And even before that, I think they have one of the deeper offensive lines and one of the few teams that can probably survive a few games without 69.
Absolutely. Again, the team is loaded. You talk about MVS, but what about Devontae Adams? Last season, he was the number 1 receiver in fantasy football, probably the best receiver in the game. Do you think that he still retains that title this season, even with a lot of people, as you said, sitting there fighting for targets and everything?
Yeah, and I think one thing that's crazy about his season last year is he missed 2 games, maybe more. Like, he didn't even play all the games, which is, it's kind of insane given the numbers he put up. I really, it wouldn't shock me, knock on wood, injuries and all those things. But if they can stay healthy, I honestly think Devontae and Aaron Rodgers could put up some pretty historical numbers, especially Devontae. I think they just have a chemistry that is very special, and it's again, all reports out there, it's just, I think, really easy for them right now compared to the rest of the league, and I really think it's going to be kind of, it has a potential for being ridiculous and again historical with some of the numbers I think 17 can put up.
Yeah, it looks a little too easy sometimes for my taste, but that's okay. You do appreciate the talent that they have out there. One of the fans, though, did write in, wanted to ask you specifically this question. And Ethan, our good friend, wants to know, do you take Eckler or Aaron Jones? If you're playing, if you got a fantasy, you're at number 7, you got to choose one of these 2 guys. Which way are you leaning?
I'm going to try to be unbiased here.
That's okay.
I'd probably say Eckler. I think I'm going to say Eckler for the fact that I think AJ Dillon and I think also Hill, their 7th round pick this year, I think the Packers are pretty high on him. And as dynamic as Aaron Jones is, he is a smaller back, and I think they're going to try to, spread the ball a little bit with their backs and take some of those points away from Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones will still be a great pick. I think he's a 1st round pick for sure. But I think Eckler's more of a workhorse back for that offense rather than compared to Aaron Jones.
Yeah, both of these guys have amazing upside this season. I think Austin Eckler showed last year when he's healthy and on the field, he's one of the best in the game. But Aaron Jones, I feel that people still sleep on him. And I made the mistake last season of kind of discrediting him because I saw some touchdown regression coming out of him, which happened, but then he was still one of the best fantasy running backs in the game. So I gotta be unbiased, and I gotta realize how good Aaron Jones is and give him a little bit more respect. So right now, though, let's talk about some other players of the Packers. We want to do this, obviously, given your background. Let's talk about some fantasy heartbreakers. And I want to talk about a guy that you mentioned a moment ago. Let me know if he's going to be a heartbreaker or not. What about Robert Tonyan, who last season came off the waiver wire, was one of the best fantasy tight ends? Is he going to be a heartbreaker this season? Can he recapture that magic, rekindle the spark, so to speak?
I think this is a tough call because, he has athletic talent. And if you, as a Packer fan, you watch this guy, tight end, you always hear is a really hard position to learn, especially in that offense. And it finally clicked for him. And I think he has a good rapport with Rodgers. But when you look at his numbers, he was so touchdown heavy, and he gets a lot, he catches everything. So I suspect he's going to have, the similar numbers and receptions and in yardage. So I could see him being up in yardage and receptions by a little bit, but I think he had 10 or 11 touchdowns. I don't see that happening again. I could see something closer to 5 or 6. And so I think for that reason, a little bit more of a heartbreaker.
And you mentioned AJ Dillon as well. There's somebody that could end up being in a goal line back who he himself could end up with 8 to 10 touchdowns, and it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Oh, so yeah. I could see AJ Dillon, again, I hope Aaron Jones stays healthy, but I could see a world where he wins a lot of playoff games for people because he, at the end of the season, he's really found his stride, and the Packers, maybe go with AJ Dillon, for a couple games, and he, might get you 20, 30 points. I mean, AJ Dillon is definitely going to have a couple games where he scores 20, 30 points. I think this season, it just depends on when.
No, I agree. See, we can come together and agree on
Yeah.
certain things. So I think that's one of them. AJ Dillon, that's where we'll plant our flag. Let's move it to Tom Brady, who, he continues to be amazing at the age of 44. Is he going to be a fantasy heartbreaker this season?
I don't know. I want to say yes, because it's like you want to be like, you can't keep doing it, but they're stacked on offense. It's year 2 in this offense. You hear a lot of reports last year that like he didn't quite figure it out offensive wise into the playoff run. I don't do they have any really dynamic running backs? I really think it's going to be up to Tom Brady. I can see Tom. I think gonna probably throw 40 touchdowns again and have not a few interceptions. Tom Brady's going to get his this year. So I think if you end up with Tom Brady as your quarterback, I think you could do a lot worse.
We talked before you got onto the show about Justin Fields. And I know that we're, for me, like, unlike you, I have not lived a life where I go into a season saying, hey, our quarterback can win us some games. Hopefully that is going to be the case with Justin Fields. How do you see him playing during his rookie season when he does eventually become the starter?
I think he's in one of those positions where there's, I have a lot of friends who are Bears fans, so I empathize with you. And even as a Packer fan who appreciates the rivalry, like, you guys just haven't had a quarterback. So there's just so much pressure for him to be great early on. And he's clearly athletic. I think he'll do all right, but I think he's going to disappoint. He's going to have his disappointing games and moments. I mean, he's a rookie, and so, maybe they can catch lightning in the bottle, but, I don't know if he's a quarterback I'd want to, draft early on. Maybe you put him on your bench if you have an extra roster spot and see if he like lights it up. Obviously he'll get some points in the ground, and I think he'll have some rushing touchdowns for sure. But I think you should, Bears fans, both fantasy wise and football wise, should have modest expectations, at least for year 1. I mean, it's
too late. No, we can't.
Yeah.
No, we can't. We have an unreasonable expectation of this young man that he has to come in and have the same season that Justin Herbert had last year. And I think it just becomes, we're just not used to it. We don't know how to act, Nick. And it's largely driven by a lot of people like me, Chicago people, that we don't know what it's like. There's a reason why when the Milwaukee Bucks were in the NBA Finals on their way to a championship, there were thousands of fans everywhere, like, rooting for the Bucks. You weren't used to it, and not to disrespect Milwaukee and the fact that you guys never win championships outside of the Packers. But I'm just saying it was something new to you for a team other than the Packers to be winning. So you have this weird sort of relationship with it. And I think we're our own or worst enemy in this situation.
Completely agree. If you would have asked me if the Bucks would ever win a championship in my lifetime, I definitely would have bet no. So yeah, like it was a surreal, and it's a great comparison.
And if Justin Fields can be our Giannis, I would happily take that. And just to get back and get one more Super Bowl. My dad said that the Bears winning a Super Bowl was pretty sweet. I would like to experience that for myself. But let me ask you, as we close this out, Aaron Rodgers could possibly be his last season. What would you give to see the Packers win a Super Bowl in Aaron Rodgers' presumed last run?
What would I give? I don't know. As I get older, like I've become a little more rational with my sports fandom, but it would certainly mean a lot, right? I've this offseason, which was kind of weird, people ask me, like, I still love Aaron Rodgers, but I think early in his career, I cared a lot about his legacy as a fan of his. I guess I care a little bit about that less now when he kind of ripped on the city of Green Bay. But it would be really special. I mean, I've been blessed as a Packer fan. It would be a great way to go out, and I want to think fondly of Aaron Rodgers, just like I, want to think fondly of Brett Favre. And as a guilt, like, I'm bullish on Jordan Love. So if the Packers could win the Super Bowl and then get like 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers, all while Jordan Love proves to be like pretty decent, like that could really set us up for the next decade. So like, I'm getting greedy and who knows, but it would be pretty surreal. But football injuries, you just never know. You don't take anything for granted. The only person who seems to be able to do this is Tom Brady, and he's made a deal with someone. I mean, at some point he's gonna have to pay the Reaper. It's last season. My mental health could not wrap my brain around how Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. I got a lot of respect for Tom Brady after that. He wills his players to win, and I think that's what makes him so special.
Yeah, it's hard not to admire what he's been able to do, especially at his age. As we get older, we're like, God, this guy's 44 and he's been able to go out there and be at the top of his profession for so long. It seems unfair at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I run 2 miles and I'm just tired now, It's like...
I get winded walking to the coffee shop. This guy's winning Super Bowls. That seems unfair. But hey, listen, wanted to thank you once again for coming in to join us for the spectacular for the second consecutive year. We love to be the haven for you to come in and talk some football. We know that, you're a dating expert, and so you don't get a lot of opportunities. So anytime you want to come back and talk football with me, you're welcome. And I will tell everybody out there, make sure you're following in on TikTok.
Adam, I couldn't appreciate it more. Anytime you want me, I love to talk shop with you. It's always great to be a part of your show, and love following you. And honestly, I take a lot of your advice when it comes to building my fantasy roster. So thanks in advance.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully we will get you a championship this season. And there he goes, Nick Viall, everybody.
For Davante Adams. There he goes for a Packers touchdown. Touchdown. Stefon Diggs with a grab. That's my touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins, miraculous. It is caught. DK Metcalf, and that's going to be a Seahawk touchdown. Calvin Ridley is caught for the touchdown.
Very pleased right now to be joined by the host of DirecTV Fantasy Zone, the host of the NFL Rhodes Show, a proud alumnus of El Toro High School. We go way back. There was a summer day in 2004. We were right outside of Poly Pavilion. She was working for, Prime Ticket, Fox Sports West. I was with the Orange County Register. We were there to interview a young man by the name of Maurice Drew. Please welcome to the show, Lindsay Rhodes. How's it going?
Yay. That was quite an intro, Adam Rank.
Oh, I've been waiting. I've been very excited about this. And I'm also excited to bring on an analyst from DirecTV Fantasy Zone, one of the creators of fantasypoints.com, a host on SiriusXM, Guru in the Morning, Fantasy Football. Sorry. Wow. I know. I'm going to do all your drops, John. I'm going to do every single one of your drops. But the Guru is here, John Hanson. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Adam. It's great to be here. Great to be here with Lindsay, and great to be on with the NFL Network people. I was on NFL Network the very first day talking fantasy football 17 years ago. Really impressive, too. I was 11 at the time.
A prodigy way back then, like the Doogie Howser of fantasy football. And now he is joining us here on the NFL Draft Spectacular. And again, love having you guys on. I want to jump into it right away. I want to talk about the wide receiver position. And John, why don't we start with you? Last year, sure. Davante Adams, monster season. Tyreek Hill, monster season. Which one of these two wide receivers would you lean towards this season?
Well, Tyreek was a little bit of a running back his rookie year, all the jet sweeps and all that. But, to get to the crux of the matter, I think we go Tyreek here. I think we lean a little bit more on volume. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs depth chart, it is really, really thin. You've got, Byron Pringle is kind of a guy where we're looking at, like, we may need this guy. We may rely on this guy. With Davante Adams, we know he's Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy. But, boy, his guy Bobby Tonyan doing really well in camp. I was told just a couple of days ago here, well into training camp, that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was one of their best players. Of course, they had Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers. There is only one football, so I think I go with Tyreek there with more targets.
That's
Lindsay,
camp
would you
talk,
agree with
John. That's camp talk. Talking about Marquez Valdez-Scantling and these types of guys, they've all had opportunities to blow up and they haven't done it. It's funny, I'm going with the exact opposite guy, but for most of the same types of reasons. This is, I guess, an example of how you can make numbers work in whatever situation you want to. I think Tyreek is outstanding. I would love to have a share of him on my fantasy football team, but if I have the choice between the two, I'm going Adams. I think he has more concentrated volume. Last year, it was an absurd 34% target share that he had. I don't expect that to dramatically change, despite what you just said about the people that are standing out in training camp. He was the #1 scoring fantasy wideout in the league last year, despite missing 2.5 games. Only scored in single digits one time. He scored 30 plus 6 times. I want every bit of Devontae Adams if given the opportunity.
Yeah, even as a Bears fan, I have to kind of sort of agree with the Devontae Adams thing. Maybe it's because, it's hurt me way too many times to see him scoring against my ball club. But where it could really get interesting is right there in the second round. And there's a couple of guys that I'm looking at that I always seem to have this debate on. And so, Lindsay, I'll go back to you. If you have a choice between DK Metcalf or Justin Jefferson, which player are you going with?
It's funny because I think that the argument is easy to make for DK, right? I'm going Justin, just to say that straight up, because I think that he has so much upside. I think that we could be talking about Justin Jefferson as maybe the best wide receiver in the league by the end of the year. I think he's going to catapult himself into that conversation because I think what we see from him in the talent department is just so incredible. The argument you could make for DK, though, he has a better quarterback. He has less competition for targets, right? They're talking about Gerald Everett having a breakout year. I'll believe that when I see it in that particular offense. Whereas Irv Smith, I think, is going to get the ball and be worked into that rotation in Minnesota. DK has end zone targets, right? 14 last year. I think it was 19 the year before. So those are high value targets. In a lot of ways, the numbers kind of push me toward DK. But my gut tells me that Justin Jefferson is a really, really special wide receiver and that we didn't see all that he could potentially do last year. And so I like the upside that I'm getting out of him there. I think we saw Russ cooking last year at the beginning of the year. And when he wasn't cooking at the end of the year, DK's fantasy value went down. I think that is not what Pete Carroll wants to do in his heart. So even if they come out of the gate cooking, so to speak, I think that they might revert back to what he ultimately wants to do, which is run the ball. And that didn't bode well for DK at the end of the season.
One of the biggest offseason stories was Julio Jones being traded to the Tennessee Titans. And of course, that could have an impact on A.J. Brown. So, John, let me ask you, are you worried about A.J. Brown this season with Julio on the opposite side of him?
I'm actually not worried. His ADP didn't really adjust all that much. Keep in mind, as we know, they lost Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis. So the offense should be all about Julio Jones, of course, and A.J. Brown. And it all really obviously starts with Derrick Henry. I do, though, have a concern in general about the Tennessee Titans. They lose their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. I know the replacement was there last year. He was the tight ends coach, but I think Arthur Smith, we're going to learn soon, is a pretty good, pretty creative guy and did a really nice job doing, the obvious, which is hand the ball off to Derrick Henry. But Derrick Henry is a concern to me as it relates to the whole team because Vegas and the people out there are only expecting them to win 9 games, and his splits in wins and losses is dramatic. When they lose, his fantasy production decreases by almost 50%. But the real question I have in the passing game is what if Julio misses time? Because they are really, really thin a receiver. I'm just not sure that Ryan Tannehill can be as efficient throwing the football, working off of Derrick Henry if it's just A.J. Brown, if Julio is out. If Julio is in, I think we're all good. We're right where we were with A.J. Brown before the acquisition of Julio. But if Julio goes down, I'm actually would be worried then about A.J. Brown.
We'll be talking about draft strategies here in just a moment, but we did ask Twitter about wide receiver twos, if we could bring that up really quick. And we asked the fans which wide receiver two will have the better season, Chris Godwin, Robert Woods, Deontay Johnson, or Brandon Ayuk in his second season with the San Francisco 49ers. The fans say Robert Woods, a USC alumnus. Lindsay, I did allude to your high school, El Toro High. But what you're also an alumnus of USC. Did the fans get this question correct?
Well, so I would go Godwin here. And I'm a big fan of Robert Woods. I think that the reason that of this group that I wouldn't have voted for Robert Woods, though, is that he's a little bit more inconsistent than Godwin is. He has a lot of boom bust potential, right? He had 6 single-digit games last year. That's not something that you see as much from Chris Godwin. He did miss 4 games because of injury, but in those games that he played, he was averaging 15.9 fantasy points per game. If he played a full slate, then he would have had more fantasy points than a Robert Woods. Ayuk is, I think, a great one, and he got a lot of votes there. He had great games at the end of the year, but I think we need to remember that they didn't have Debo or Kittle at the end of the year, and I'm not sure that he's going to get that kind of volume when they start the season this year. So I think it's hard to go wrong with any of those guys, frankly, but I would vote for Godwin.
One of the things I know that you're really great at is identifying those breakout players. This is both of you, a specialty of the both of you. John, I want to throw it to you. Who is a breakout wide receiver that you're looking at this season?
Jerry Jeudy. We start there, and boy, he is having a meteoric rise up the board this summer. As the closer we get to the season, it's like everyone's like, oh, wait a second. Jerry Jeudy is a baller who led the NFL in uncatchable targets last year with 35, and he was like 190. He was second out of 196 wide receivers in terms of catchable passes thrown his way. Just 65% of the passes thrown his way were catchable, and a lot of that obviously was Drew Lock. So he did not have problems on tape at Alabama catching the ball, and his route running is just unbelievable. You turn on the tape last year even, he's just always open. He's like 7-Eleven out there. So I think the quarterback situation will be improved. Teddy B can absolutely support a volume receiver and really maximize that player for run after the catch, as he did last year with Robbie Anderson. It's one of those sleep like a baby moves. Just go all in on Jerry Jeudy and sleep well.
You want to know my breakout wide receiver?
Please.
I'm going with Chase Claypool. And I know we all the thing that I think is interesting about what's happening in Pittsburgh is that talking to reporters who are there and asking them who's the best wide receiver on this team, they're consistently saying Chase Claypool. But in your fantasy football ADPs and draft rankings, it goes Deontay Johnson and then Juju Smith-Schuster and then Chase Claypool. I think he's flying under the radar. And I think that the usage of him in that Pittsburgh offense is going to change this year. In the Hall of Fame game, we saw he was on the field for 100% of the snaps prior to having to leave with what they suspected at the time and turned out not to be an injury. So that is not the way they used him last year. His snap share appears to be up. If the run game gets going also, which was a big problem for that offense, obviously last year, you're going to see less passing volume, but I think you're going to see more passing success. And I think that that bodes well for a guy like Chase, who has the speed and route running ability to make big plays in that kind of an offense. I think his draft position for the value that I think he will return is relatively low. And I think we're going to end up talking about him in a different tier of wide receiver by the end of the year.
I agree with Lindsay. I'm in. And by the way, red zone beast. He's going to score double-digit touchdowns for sure in 2021.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, John. Do you have one more for us, though? I see. There's
do.
a guy that I would
do.
talk about, but I would feel like I'm too biased if I brought him up. So I'd rather you do it as the guru.
Oh, who is
and
this?
then it's blessed.
Yeah. No, this guy's going to hit. Mark the tape. You could old takes expose me out the yin yang. I don't care. I will sleep well tonight. Darnell Mooney will break out for your Adam Rank, your Chicago Bears. 61 grabs last year. Not too shabby, but only 41% of his targets that traveled 15 or more yards down the field were deemed catchable per Sports Info Solutions, which was brutal. We all saw it. I scratched my cornea watching Nick Foles trying to get the ball down the field to Darnell Mooney. And, we talked to the coaches. We have a couple, sources on the staff, and they're like, oh, you have no idea how many plays where he was wide open streaking down the field and Nick couldn't get him the ball. Well, guess what? Your new guy, Justin Fields, outstanding deep ball location and ball placement. He will unleash Darnell Mooney here in U2. And by the way, your Bears need him. Other than the tight ends, A-Rob, who else we got here in Chicago? Maybe a little Riley Ridley, but that's about it.
Oh, no.
You got Justin Fields. You got
much.
Justin Fields. Just do it all of it.
That's what we do. That's what we're hoping for. This finally a quarterback. But yeah, I agree with Darnell Mooney. And it's time for Fantasy 101 presented by NFL Sunday Ticket.tv. We're going to be talking a little draft strategy. And John, why don't you lead us off? What is your favorite draft strategy for everybody out there?
Yeah, I think we just always go back to the quarterback position. I'm kind of fluid on it. I change here and there. There are some years where I'm okay with it. Taking back in the 5th round. Last year I was all in kind of on Dak Prescott. If you're like stuck in round 5, but when you look at the way the board lines up, and I do a lot of studying of ADP and all that, and looking at who's the values and where the tiers are and all that, I really do think it's a mistake to get Patrick Mahomes. Last year, my number one quarterback breakout guy was Josh Allen. Want no parts of him this year. That was last year. We're happy for him. Good luck. But won't be on my team. He's too expensive. Even Lamar and Dak are getting a little expensive for me. I'm okay with Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, 7th, 8th, 9th round, even Stafford. There are a lot of guys I like, but I do think the best chance to form the best lineup is to hold off on quarterback. And there are some dirt cheap options there that you can roll with. I actually love Baker Mayfield this year. I think he's going to throw over 30 touchdowns. I know it's a run-based offense, but he'll work off the run, a la Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. And then, of course, the scrambling cheat code guys, Justin Fields. I've been all in from day one, and Trey Lance. Granted, we may not have to, be able to start Trey Lance in September, but those guys are cheat codes. I do like Fields the most. Fields and then Baker. And meantime, you're just stocking up on non-quarterbacks and you're loaded.
100%. I'm over here nodding like a bobblehead, Adam, because I couldn't agree more. And by the way, I really like in the 9th, 10th round range, you could get yourself a Herbert, Tannehill, Stafford, and then a couple of rounds later back them up with the Trey Lance or Justin Fields. And then you have somebody who's going to give you consistent points, but then somebody on your bench that when they name them starters, you've got that rushing upside and they can suddenly plug into the starting lineup. My strategy is, and I am hard and fast, and I will not deviate from this until I learn this lesson the hard way, is I'm going to go running back. And for that reason, I actually like this year drafting toward the end of the first round. Maybe like I've drafted 12th in a 14-team league, and I've drafted 9th in a 12-team league. And I really like the running back that you can get there, maybe like an Aaron Jones in that range in the first round. And then I like the quick turn to get another running back so that you can still get somebody like an Antonio Gibson. Because if you draft really early in the first round, then sometimes at the end, when it comes back around to you, the second, the running back options are not as exciting. And this is when you get into trouble because you feel like you have to take one of those wide receivers, or this is when somebody's going to take one of those top tight ends or a quarterback. So I would rather take that choice out of my hands and draft at the end of the first round this year and get 2 really solid running backs. I do feel strongly about taking a top tight end this year too, though. If you can get one of those top 3 tight ends, and for me, that would be in the 3rd round. If any one of them is available, I'm going to snag one of those guys. And if they are not there, then I'm going to go back in the 4th round and I'm going to make sure that I grab one of the top 6 tight ends, because the drop off is way too dramatic. I think anywhere after the top 6, you're ending up with somebody that might not actually be consistently playable. And I don't want to stream my tight ends. So because of the drop off at the position, I would love to take a tight end in the top 4 rounds, though running back. And then I'm just going to load up on wide receivers after that. And I'm going to take my quarterback late, like John said.
All right. You guys have convinced me. And I do want to thank you both for coming on. This went by way too fast, but I'm a huge fan of your work. Sundays are only acceptable watching you guys on the Red Zone, the Fantasy Red Zone. So I appreciate you being on. Thank you so much. And get ready for all the football you can handle with a free preview of DirecTV NFL Sunday Ticket Max, the first week of the season. Every live out-of-market game plus DirecTV Fantasy Zone, and you'll see these 2, and it's worth it. And, of course, you get the Red Zone channel with Andrew Siciliano. This is going to be absolutely free on Sunday, September 12th, only on DirecTV.
What year is this? Are you? Yes, I'm you, but from the future.
Damn, I've aged well.
This is Princess Playoffs. I'm in my fantasy semis, and I don't know if I should start Jared Goff versus Dallas.
You must bench Lord Gurley, for this is the way.
Reminds me of Antonio Brown. We don't know what it's going to turn into, right? Might be a mountain of fantasy points. Might be dirt. We don't know.
You are not the starter.
No!
Oh, George Lucas is going to sue somebody. Pleased to be joined right now. One of the analysts on DirecTV's Fantasy Zone, the co-creator of the Danger Zone, one half of the Tackling Dummies. Please welcome James Coe.
What's up, dude? How you doing, man? What an introduction! My God, I didn't know you guys had that video montage set up for me, man. I'm flattered. Thank you. I'm glad to be here on camera with you, NFL Media, for the very first time since what, 2018, man. So no, it's great to be back with you, man. It's like old times all of a sudden.
In addition to you being one of my good friends, one of the things that I've really admired about you over the course of our time together is the ability to find these hidden gems in fantasy. And I know a lot of people talk now like sleepers. There's no such thing as sleepers. And then yet every week, James Coe comes out and finds guys that you're not talking about who ends up going out and popping. And of course, this is before the draft. So this will be an opportunity for us to kind of look ahead into our drafts and find somebody who can help you out. You can steal them at the end of the first round. And I've got your list here. So I'm not gonna be the thing like, hey, give us one. No, I'll tee it up for you. Because the first one is a guy that I've been taking an awful lot, and it's because you brought it up. I'm like, listen, I didn't unearth this. I'm copying off James per usual. What about Nyheim Hines? This seems like this player is crazily undervalued.
Yeah, he really is. Nyheim Hines to me has like these Austin Eckler vibes, right? Like they're both these super speedy scat backs that they're going to use all over the field. Nyheim Hines ran a 4.38 40, and of course I got to stay on brand here and cite these 40 times. But Nyheim Hines, man, he can absolutely burn. And we're talking about a dude right now, Adam, right, that has an ADP in round 11. So you can get this running back late, and who doesn't like a late round running back value? This is somebody who averaged nearly 10 touches per game, and he turned that into 54 scrimmage yards per game last year with 4 receptions. So before we even take into consideration the fact that he scored 7 touchdowns on limited touches, we're talking about a player in PPR averaging 9.5 PPR points per game at the running back position. Adam Wright, this is somebody that you are going to love to draft. Maybe you stick him in there in your flex and he just becomes that like nice, steady contributor with upside, because as we know, running back very volatile. Should some more volume present itself, I think Nyheim Hines could really take it and run.
Is it crazy to think, and I know that T.Y. Hilton's there, but is Nyheim Hines like their best pass catcher? Their second best pass catcher? I feel like in the pecking order, he's pretty high up there.
Yeah, he really should be, right? Like for me, it's Michael Pittman 1, and then Nyheim Hines 2, and then you've got these other guys that are a little bit unproven, in terms of unproven assets, younger players. But then you've got T.Y. Hilton, the veteran guy, who is a little bit longer in the tooth. You know what I'm saying? So, I would probably put him right behind Michael Pittman in terms of their top pass catchers.
Yeah, and Sam Ehlinger's starting in week 1. We'll be like, yeah, dump it off to Nyheim Hines. The Patriots, the wide receiver position to me is a difficult one. You like Jacoby Myers. Why is that?
Oh man, this one, if we're handing out credit, I got to hand out the credit to Matt Harmon, my business partner over there at Reception Perception, the creator of Reception Perception, the greatest analytics tool when we're talking about trying to unearth. Final horn, baby. When we're talking about unearthing some fantasy wide receivers. But Matt Harmon, did the deep dive on Jacoby Myers and found some really, really interesting numbers. He had a 72.6 success rate versus man coverage last year. And now what does that mean? Well, when you cross that 72% threshold, that's really where we start to find some of these stud receivers early on in their career, then become studs a little bit later in their career, right? We're talking about the Allen Robinsons of the world. We're talking about, how about 2016 Stefon Diggs had a 72% success rate versus man coverage. So this is somebody, Jacoby Myers, who I get it. Low volume passing attack potentially, if Cam Newton starts there in New England. But if it's Mac Jones, or hell, even if it is Cam, this is a guy that still produced. In the 8 games that he was a starter last year, we're talking about Jacoby Myers, saw 7.4 targets, averaged 5.4 receptions a game, 66 yards per game. Now, I get it. did not catch any touchdowns in this low volume attack, but he did throw for 2 touchdowns because we're talking about a converted quarterback. So he can be used in a lot of different ways. I really think Jacoby Myers, man, presents a lot of value. You know why, Frank? The man's not being drafted in fantasy drafts right now. He is absolutely free. 16th round, Jacoby Myers. Just pull the slam that draft button on Jacoby Myers in the 16th round. You getting some value there.
Yeah, you'll be lampooned if you draft Jacoby Myers in your fantasy draft. Although, I will say this. Talk to your league manager and see if you can add some extra roster spots just so you can take chances on players like this. This is if you take one thing from this show today, it's that you should have a bigger bench, because I really do love the idea of rewarding people who have a little bit of foresight and can think about players like Jacoby Myers, who's going undrafted currently. And what about the next player, Amon-Ra St. Brown? To me, he looks like the number 1 guy with the Detroit Lions. Am I wrong? Am I right? What's going on with him?
I mean, Adam, like you and I are on the West Coast, and we're college football fans, and we have seen a lot of USC football in our day. And I am just confused, and I know you are too. It's like, how did this man slip in the draft? Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he can play, and he played for USC. It's not like he played for Cal State Northridge or like San Jose State. Or, you know what I mean? He's not like he's not a guy from a random school like that.
Northridge dropped their program in the 90s. Way to keep current.
Yes. But yeah, no, listen, man, like this is what I don't get, you know? Like this guy could absolutely play. He played at a high level at USC, and he's just a tough-nosed scrapper at the receiver position. It is awfully easy to see. And yeah, it might be the easy comp, but you can see it, man. Like, how does he not fill that Cooper Kupp role for Jared Goff in the Motor City? It seems like an easy comparison because it is.
I think that it's still important, though, that we go back to tradition. Kind of like the night after WrestleMania 13, when Triple H talked about HBK dropping the ball, and he said, you got to go back to your family. You got to go back to the clique, and he brought out X-Pac. Similarly, we're going to bring back the danger zone right here. I'm going to let you lead off. Should I lead off? I traditionally lead off. So I feel like I'm going to do it.
No, actually, well, I do the introductions because I usually introduce you.
You got to do
right,
okay.
You know. Right.
You do the
okay.
You want to do the introduction?
Right, here we
go. Did you write it?
I'll do the introduction. I don't need to write one. I mean, God, Jesus Christ, we did like 100 of these. You know. So he is the Macho Man, Ranky Savage.
Oh, yeah.
I am Hulk Hogan. And what you gonna do, brother, when the fantasy mega powers run wild on you? I'm like, hit him with a big elbow of knowledge.
It is time for the Danger Zone. And I'm going to talk right now about Lynn Bowden Jr. and why he is going to be a breakout for the Miami Dolphins. This young man is from his hometown of Youngstown, Ohio, a blue-collar city that has produced actors, athletes, and legends, and sometimes they're 3-1, including Ed O'Neill, who you might remember from Married with Children, who you might remember from Blue Chips, who you might remember from other great movies. And he has a connection to a film called Any Given Sunday. And in that film, the main team was the Miami Sharks. The Miami Sharks were the rival of the Miami Dolphins. And what team does Lynn Bowden Jr. play for?
Oh my God.
He plays for the Miami Dolphins.
It all makes sense.
Also from Youngstown, Ohio, Bernie Kosar, who played his final season with the Miami Dolphins. Too many connections, James. He's going to break out.
Many connections here. You know, Bernie Kosar had a birthday, or his birthday is on November 25th. And when I think about Danger Zone, you know, we do bring in a lot of numbers because that's what we do. We
look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Look at them.
Look at them all.
Look at them.
Look at them.
Look at the numbers.
And what we do when we're talking about Danger Zone. We are talking about finding deep sleepers in the deepest of leagues. For those of you in 14-team or deeper leagues, we got your back right here with the Danger Zone. And so now, again, November 25th, the birthday for Bernie Kosar. How do I know that? Because on November 24th, that's the birthday of my Danger Zone player, Tony Jones Jr., running back for the New Orleans Saints. Now, he's built like a fullback, 5'10", 220 pounds. He ran an abysmal 4.6840. Now, you're thinking to yourself, my God, that's not the kind of player James Coe likes. But I tell you what, I watched the game tape. I'm very intrigued, very smooth runner. But, this is the first time, as I mentioned, Adam Wright, that I've been on the NFL media platform in a video capacity since I was very kindly asked to leave, very politely asked to leave back in 2018. But my famous catchphrase back in the day, and I'm sure you're very familiar, I'm sure all the viewers watching are very familiar, my famous catchphrase was what? It was fantasy freaks and geeks. Now, I just want you to remember that. Hold on to that, Adam Wright. Hold on to that. Because here's the thing. November 24th, that's the same birthday as Katherine Heigl, star of Knocked Up. Who was the main actor in that one? That would be one Mr. Seth Rogen, who got his first on-camera gig on a Judd Apatow show called Freaks and Geeks, because it all comes back to the Danger Zone when we're talking about deep sleepers for those of you in super deep leagues.
Oh, yeah. Danger Zone. I'm sorry. Okay. That was amazing. First of all, that was amazing. Second of all, how did you know Bernie Kosar's birthday? How did you know it was offhand? I went when they went to your single, I'm like, he's just making that up. There's no way Bernie Kosar's birthday is on the 25th. Why would you know that?
November 25th. That's right.
Why do you know that?
I don't know.
None of this was.
By the way, I just want people to know this was not scripted. I didn't know he was going to talk about Lynn Bowden Jr. for freak's sake, And then I definitely didn't know he was going to talk about Bernie Kosar for God's sakes. But anyways, yeah, that was awesome. Wow, I can't believe that just all tied in.
Listen, at some point, I really want to know why you know Bernie Kosar's birthday. That is the most important thing of this whole spectacular. Anyways, I do want to thank you for coming on. Want to encourage everybody to be watching the DirecTV coverage. The stuff that you're doing there is second to none. So thank you so much for being here, and it's great seeing you, and I love you, buddy.
Man, hey, listen, it's always a pleasure to be on with you, Adam Rank. You know that, as always. You're my pal. You're my bud. And yeah, man, we got to go hit the links pretty soon again, bud. It's been too long.
Oh, yeah, I'm hitting all the fairways now, so it's beautiful. All right.
Perfect.
And if you want to get ready for all the football you can handle with a free preview of DirecTV NFL Sunday Ticket Max the first week of the season. That's right. Every live out-of-market game, plus DirecTV Fantasy Zone with James Coe, and of course, the Red Zone channel. All of that absolutely free on Sunday, September 12th, only on DirecTV.
Ain't no better time to be great than today. Mahomes fires for the end zone. Toss. Touchdown. Give him 6. Dalvin Cook pushes his way. Davante Adams toward the end zone. There's Kelsey at the 10. Leaps. And he flies. Allen out of the gun. Into the end zone. Touchdown. McCaffrey. Break free. Scores. Touchdown. Carolina.
What's up, everybody? Joining the show right now, it is my castmates from the Stardom and Sid'em show. You know her from NFL Fantasy Live. You know her from the NFL Network's draft coverage. She is becoming a big international superstar. She is going to be one of those people that we talk about 10 years down the road when they do a behind the music type feature on. I just want to be in the first 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. But please welcome to the show, Kimmy Checks. How are you, Kimmy?
Rank-a-doodle, as I like to call you. How are you? Thanks for having me. Thanks for the very sweet intro. I don't think any of that is correct. I'm just waiting I'm waiting for all of you guys to get sick of me and kick me off all of this stuff. But happy to be here for now.
Well, that is never going to happen. And also joining us here today in his floral shirt as prescribed by his contract, He is a young man who started off as one of our key researchers, but has become an integral part of the fantasy operation. You've seen him on NFL Fantasy Live, the Stardom and Sid'em show. Please welcome Michael F. Florio. Michael, what's up, man?
Not much. And as you said, yeah, once I found out I was on with you and Kimmy, I said I have to wear floral. So I literally ran and put a shirt on just for you guys.
There would have been a riot.
Yes, and we have the air
Club
horns.
Dub! Oh, is it Club Dub now? We're here to do a mock draft. Try to get you ready for your own mock draft. So we'll go out there and make the mistakes so you don't make them. So don't follow our lead, but we'll go out there and give you some insight in what we're looking at in each position on the board. We're going to start off at number 1. I think one of the easiest calls. So sorry, Kimmy, that we're going to make you do the easy one. I don't know who set that one up. I don't know. But actually, I think this is a little bit more difficult than people are giving it credit for. But if you're sitting there on the board, 1.01, who are you drafting?
All right, I'm not going to worry about injuries, so this one's probably a little bit obvious. I'm going to go ahead, fire me up Christian McCaffrey. Not worried about him bouncing back. We understand the volume's always consistently going to be there. He has probably the safest floor in fantasy football with an explosive ceiling. You know, there's still some question marks on what's going to happen at the quarterback position. Is Sam Darnold really going to be good for the Panthers? Who knows? I don't know. I don't care. I just want to make sure Christian McCaffrey is great. So I'm going to take CMC. And since this is kind of obvious, can I take one brief moment to plug Mike Davis with the Atlanta Falcons now? Because we saw what he did last season, filling in for Christian McCaffrey. And maybe that's not as obvious for a lot of people, but Mike Davis, a name that you should remember in fantasy drafts. But CMC, numero uno.
I love that you took that opportunity to, it's like when you have a speech at the Golden Globes. You're like, you know what? And now that I have a moment, I want to talk about this album that I'm putting out or anything. Like, that was perfect. I like Mike Davis too. Florio, you're on the clock at number 2, and you're going with?
Yeah, if Christian McCaffrey is an easy pick at number 1, I think Dalvin Cook is an easy pick at number 2. The guy was the RB2 last year after being the RB6 the year before, but he's been a top 3 fantasy running back and fantasy points per game the last 2 seasons. And he led the NFL in touches per game last year, and he was averaging nearly 140 yards per game. The Vikings offense runs through this guy. I mean, what else do I have to say? He's going to get a lot of touches and score you a lot of fantasy points. He is a great pick at number 2.
Yeah, I would even say that you can make the argument for him at number 1 if you wanted to go in that direction, but I think that it's going to break out probably this way. And for me, sitting at number 3, I think is probably the most unenviable situation because you miss out on both those guys unless something crazy happens. And I'm going to do something a little nuts right here. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. And I know, and everybody's like, what format is this, Rank? Here's what format it is. I don't care. My thing with Derrick Henry is that he is one of the top running backs in the NFL. I know a lot of people fear regression. They fear all the carries that he had last season, but he's a different human being. When he was walking the halls of the NFL Network, one fine day, I saw him from a distance and I'm like, oh, I wonder what lineman's here today. Oh, wait, it's Derrick Henry. Like, he is just a different person. I think that he's somebody that can carry the ball 400 times a year. It's not going to bother him. I also think, too, that people are making too much of an issue of Arthur Smith going to Atlanta. Like, everybody's acting like Arthur Smith all of a sudden became Sean McVay. All he did was give the ball to Derrick Henry. Like, Mike LaFleur couldn't figure that out. Arthur Smith, it's almost remedial that he just came in and was like, oh, let's just run the ball. Okay, cool. Like, and Arthur Smith was just a quality control guy, tight ends coach, and now the current offensive coordinator was a tight ends coach. Like, can you give the ball to Derrick Henry? Then I think, okay, fine. Then I think the offensive coordinator situation is overblown. So let's go back to number 4. Kim, who are you going to take at number 4?
Well, you just made that really easy because I thought you were going to take this guy at number 3. No shade for Derrick Henry. I love Derrick Henry. But isn't the obvious answer here Alvin Kamara? I actually made an argument on Fantasy Live, our preseason show, that I would maybe actually take Alvin Kamara first overall, which is a little bit spicy because everyone's worried. Who's going to be the quarterback? Is it Taysom Hill? Is it Jameis Winston? It doesn't matter because no matter the situation, Alvin Kamara is going to be dominant. Michael Thomas is out, at least for the first few games for the New Orleans Saints. He is injured, had to have surgery this offseason. And I was actually down in Metairie, Louisiana for training camp with the Saints. And myself and Jim Trotter got an opportunity opportunity to speak with both Alvin Kamara and head coach Sean Payton. And we kind of have the question, well, isn't that a lot of pressure on your shoulders? Because not only are you going to be involved in the rushing game, but the passing game as well. And he smiled and he said, no, none of that is a burden. To me, it's a blessing. If you guys want to pass the ball to me more, I'll go ahead and take it. And then he had his pearly whites and just a smile that on Alvin Kamara. So this is easy. Alvin Kamara and CMC, game over. It's a lock. It was fun, guys. Good job.
That's not one team, Kim. That's a different team that was selecting 4th overall. It would be nice if you could stack those two players, of course. But with the 5th overall selection, Michael, with those players off the board, which way are you leaning?
A lot like Kimmy's pick, I think you guys really made it for me by taking Henry and Kamara. So I'll just go with what I think is the next best available running back in Ezekiel Elliott. And unlike Kamara, I do think the quarterback matters a lot for Zeke. Last year, he was averaging over 23 fantasy points per game with Dak. That number fell to below 12 without him. And if you look at what he did with Dak Prescott and you put it on a 16-game pace, it's 370 fantasy points, which would have been the RB2 last year, with nearly 1,200 rushing yards, 77 catches, 550 receiving yards, and 19 total touchdowns. I'm not saying he's going to put up those numbers, but we know how high the ceiling is if Dak and Zeke are out there together. And, Hard Knocks has been making Zeke pretty likable and making him look like he is in fantastic shape, so that doesn't hurt.
The Hard Knocks rub is not only going to help CeeDee Lamb, which we've seen way too much of, but also Ezekiel Elliott. They're going in the number 5 spot. So I'm going to sit here in the 6 hole. And once again, I'm going to go a little bit controversial. I'm going to go against the grain, which a lot of people will not take Nick Chubb in a PPR league because he just doesn't catch the football. But I want to look at the offense and how do the Cleveland Browns attack teams. It's up front. It's running the football. I'm going to be sacrificing a couple of points here and there because he doesn't catch the ball as much. But this is a player that could win you a NFL rushing title. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities every time that they get near the goal line. And for me, I'll take that. I'll trade off a little bit. If you got to sacrifice in some part there, that's okay. I just want a really good football player who I know is going to start every game with 80 scrimmage yards. He's going to have an opportunity for a touchdown. Any catch that he makes is going to be a bonus. And to me, he's one of the most lock stock players in this draft. And I look at some of these other running backs who are available. I like them all. And I'm looking at some of the picks. I don't know. Maybe I'm too excited about Nick Chubb. But the thing is, I just think he's a good football player on a team with a good offensive line. And I don't think that you can ever go wrong if you do that. So let's go to pick 7. Kim, who do you got?
Back on the clock for this one. All right. I honestly feel like I should make the pick. And then honestly, I'd rather give the microphone over to Michael F. Florio because I know how much you love this guy. I'm going to go ahead and take Jonathan Taylor at number 7. Again, this is a little bit of a spicy pick, not because of his ability, but instead because the Colts have not been so lucky this offseason. Carson Wentz is out right now. He has surgery. Their starting left guard is also out with the exact same injury as Carson Wentz. So a lot of people are concerned about this O-line. But if anyone could do anything with it, it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. I think this is going to be an incredible breakout season for him. I listened to all the hype that Florio gives on him, so I just had to snag him, mostly to besmirch Florio so that you couldn't get him at number 8.
Well, what are you going to do at number 8 there, Florio?
Well, I was going to take Jonathan Taylor if he was there. And then, Kimmy, you did besmirch me a little bit, but it was a great pick. I can't knock you for it. But another one of my guys was there. Another one of my guys was there at 8, so I just went with him. I took Austin Eckler, who I'm ecstatic to get in the back half of the first round in PPR drafts. And a target is just worth 2.5 carries in PPR leagues. And this is a guy who last year with Justin Herbert led all running backs in targets and catches per game. So I think he's going to do a bunch in the passing game. With Herbert last year, he was also averaging nearly 20 fantasy points per game, would have made him the RB6. And in the last 2 years, he is the RB6 in terms of fantasy points per game. I think this guy could finish top 5. And I know it's a little bit, a hot topic to say, but if he gets touches near the goal line, this guy could be like a version of Christian McCaffrey and compete to be the RB1, I think. So very happy to get Austin Eckler at 8 overall.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, Mike, I was on Instagram and I put up a photo of Austin Eckler, and I'm like, more and more, I need to leave my draft with Austin Eckler. And there was this kid, his name was probably Tanner. And he's like, oh, why are you taking a backup? And I responded, listen, I think I've been spending too much time on TikTok, but I responded by saying, tell me you're a casual without telling me you're a casual. And honestly, like when I look at this, I might have, like, again, the whole point of a mock draft is to go back and look at some of your mistakes. I think it's a mistake not taking Austin Eckler at number 6. I would have taken him over. I should probably take him over Nick Chubb. Honestly, if I'm going back, like, so that's one thing that sticks with me. And I'm like, Austin Eckler probably deserves to go top 6. So I didn't want to make that mistake here. So at number 9, you're in a position where you could go with somebody like Aaron Jones. Travis Kelce would be a popular pick. Saquon is still off on the board. I really want to go with Antonio Gibson. And I want to go into drafts trying to project for the future. Instead of looking last year like, hey, this guy scored 18 touchdowns last year, what is going to happen this season? And I know that sometimes there's a lot of coach speak, and these coaches love to talk about like, well, I want to make Antonio Gibson my CMC. Well, that raises my interest, because I look at the skill set and I say, is this possible? Is this the type of player who could be a CMC? And absolutely he could be. He was a wide receiver at Memphis. Everybody knows this. But you add in that pass catching ability. He learned on the job last year how to be a running back. And to me, this is one player, along with Austin Eckler, that I cannot leave the first round without. I have to have Antonio Gibson. And if it costs me a little bit more, so be it. It's kind of like when this happened to me one time. I was in Las Vegas. We had a full night out. Went to In-N-Out. The line was packed. There was a guy walking out of the In-N-Out with a bag. I go, I don't even know what's in your bag. I'll give you $50 for it right now. And the guy's like, okay, cool. Boom, done. I paid more than I probably needed to. I had to make that transaction. And that's the way I feel about Antonio Gibson. I'm absolutely bullish on him this season. So that's my story. And I guess we'll move on. What? What?
The second you're like, this one time in Vegas, I'm like, is this for television?
Is this a
props? Should we be
props?
repeating this?
It's sort of a props. Number 10, Kimmy, go. Save
All right.
us.
Well, you mentioned him a little bit earlier, and now he's just out there for the pick. I'm gonna go ahead and sweep up my guy, Kansas City Chief, numero uno tight end, none other than Travis Kelce. Kind of an obvious one here. Don't really need to break it down too much. I think this is a thing that you're going to see in the first round of nearly every draft you're in. Travis Kelce is going to go off the board, I think, middle to late, because if we're being honest, I think anything outside of the top 4, top 5 running backs, after that, it gets a little murky. So I think we're going to see a lot more pass catchers going in the first round.
I mean, that's a solid strategy. It paid off last year handsomely for a lot of people, especially, you know what, you're still in especially at the number 10 spot, because you're still in a position to get a quality running back on the other side in the second round. So Florio, you're picking 11th overall. Who is the guy to target?
It would have been Travis Kelce. Kimmy got me again with that pick, but with him off the board, I did consider pass catchers like Devontae Adams, but I figured I could get a strong wide receiver and on the way back if I went with a running back here. So I went with Saquon Barkley, and here's the secret, right? Like, you don't need to have the best record in fantasy to make the fantasy playoffs. So even if Saquon is limited or gets off to a slow start, I'm okay with that as long as Saquon is Saquon come the middle and particularly the end of the season when he could push me over the top and win me a championship. We know how good Saquon Barkley is. He was the RB1 as a rookie. He was top 10 the year after, even though he missed some time with an injury. Tore his ACL last year, but he will be back and be fine. It might take him a couple games to fully get going, but once he gets going, I think this guy could win people championships. So I'm fine taking the shot on him at the back end of the first round.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that the fantasy playoffs are not in week 1. They're in week 17 or 15, 16, 17 this season. Remember? Yeah, it's the longest season ever. We have an 18-week season now. Remember that, everybody. I like the Saquon pick. At number 12, we have not had a wide receiver go off the board. If I'm sitting here, because I'm at the turn, one of my picks is likely to be a running back. like Aaron Jones or somebody like that. Let me talk a little bit about Calvin Ridley, though. I want to talk again about forecasting, looking forward, not necessarily always looking back, projecting who is going to be the guy this year who steps up. Last season, I told you it was going to be Davante Adams, and you guys thought I was an idiot. Now, I'm talking about Calvin Ridley, and again, you guys want to come after me, which is fine. We'll bring it up at the end of the year. When we talk about Calvin Ridley having a monster season, we've seen him exceed without Julio Jones. He has been a better player in his NFL career without Julio Jones, and spoiler alert, the Falcons added Kyle Pitts this season, so there is another domineering presence on the field. Calvin Ridley is going to step up. He has all the things that I love out of a wide receiver. Number one, he's great. Number two, his quarterback is good. Number three, his defense is bad, which means the Falcons are going to be in a lot of negative game scripts, which means there's going to be a lot of opportunities. So I love Calvin Ridley. I would come on the backside. You could actually, you know what? You could actually pair him with Davante Adams if you want to go 0 RB and then hope somebody like David Montgomery, Chris Carson, some of those guys fall. Now, if you enjoyed the magic that you just watched for the last couple of minutes, be sure to catch Kim, Miguel, and me on NFL Fantasy Live this season. And of course, this year we'll be doing the Stardom Situm Show, which will be available on all of our digital platforms that you can check out on the NFL Fantasy app, on the NFL app, YouTube, all that good stuff. So make sure you're watching us and make sure you go out there and win an NFL Fantasy Football Championship. All right? Kim?
It's
Michael?
so good to see
Thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to see you. No, this has been a good time. No, I appreciate you guys stopping by, taking time out of your day, joining me here. So thank you very much. Hey, that was a lot of fun, and I want to say thank you to all of our guests for stopping by today, and a big shout out to our friends at DirecTV. And just a reminder, make sure you download the NFL Fantasy app right now, or if you haven't, you can go to NFL.com/fantasy to join a league today, and also follow at NFL Fantasy to get all the latest news and information and everything to get you ready each and every week. Thank you for watching the Fantasy Draft Spectacular presented by NFL Sunday Ticket.tv.